Oh, there it is. Squeak, squeak, mofos and brofos. It me, Chris. The wobbling thing in the corner that is vaguely shaped like a cartoon rat. And today, as always, it's Wednesday, so it's no sweep. What? No sleep. Shit. All right. That's all right. We got this. We got this. And we're not going to bother with the preambles. We will ask for forgiveness if we need to. Let's crack on. I recognize this name. We begin. Thank you and apologies to Blair Daniels, once again, I'm sure, with... I asked Reddit users how they died, and got a terrifying response. I imagine if you got any responses probably concerning. How did you die, people? Oh, we're going to answer now. Oh, shit, a ghost! It was a ghost all along. Marissa and I were 2 drinks in when we started trolling r/askreddit. Oh, wait, I've got a good one, she said, grabbing my laptop. u/throwaway1122333xa. Dead people of Reddit. How did you die? I looked at her. Seriously? Up until then, our questions were all along the lines of what 12-year-olds might post, despite the fact that we were in our late 20s. It doesn't make you any more mature than a 12-year-old, but okay. This was a rather macabre turn of events, although for Marissa, 2-3 hyphens, who survived on a steady diet of B-rate horror flicks and Diet Coke, it was to be expected. Wow. Take that, Diet Coke enjoyers. It's funny because they can't reply if they're dead, she explained. The mods are just going to remove it. But at 20 minutes in, the mod still hadn't removed our post. We'd accumulated several comments, which were basically what you'd expect. Jokes. U/redacted. I died in 2008 when your mom sat on my face. Copypastas and similar. I'm actually a coroner, and it's well documented that the bodies are still living for moments or even minutes after they're pronounced dead. Someone could be in a semi-comatose state and still able to answer how they died. The best example of this was in 2014 when Hell's Demon threw Ghost Rider out of the ring and he flew 20 feet into the crowd. And bots. That's a great question. Many of us wonder what the afterlife holds. It's not curiosity, it's a quest to know your purpose. But then we saw it. One comment at the bottom posted 3 minutes ago. Car accident. Marissa grabbed the laptop from me and hit reply. Pixar, it didn't happen, she began typing. Dude, you can't post that. Everyone has AI now, I said. I thought they didn't allow you to generate gruesome images like a car accident. Yeah, but they could just do like a car on fire. I sighed and grabbed the laptop from her. And replied with receipts. Seconds after the notification bell showed a red 1. When Marissa refreshed the page, the reply appeared with a single URL. kwbtv.com/2026-02-08/redacted. A local news article loaded, showing a photo of a small sedan crumpled at the base of an enormous tree. Driver dies in early Sunday accident on 217. That's right, you guys just refer to roads as numbers. Ah yes, where were you? I was on the 5. You know how that sounds, right? I know. It doesn't name the victim. Oh, that's clever. Finding some accident where the driver's anonymous and just saying you're that person, Marissa said. Check their post history. I clicked, expecting the post to be hidden, but instead the profile was open, and it looked like only 2 posts they'd made were replies to us. Huh, weird. Marissa grabbed the laptop and typed. So, sorry you're dead. What's the afterlife like? What's the afterlife like? Within a minute they replied. Cold and dark. A chill went down my spine. Ooh, that's so spooky. I mean, you'd kind of assume that that was the case unless they were literally on fire. I glanced at Marissa. She wasn't smiling anymore either. What? Look, if it's just RP, they're gonna say that, right? Oh god, we knew that it was right because that's exactly what the afterlife would be. Her face lit in the blues from my computer screen. Okay, this is stupid. This guy's just fucking with us. No, wait. So you think you're in hell? Yes, hell, well known for being extremely cold. Every depiction of hell I've ever seen has been cold because it's frozen over, right? Most certainly. So you think you're in hell? What do you see? I began to type, but before I could hit reply, Marissa yanked the laptop out of my hands. No, no, no. She erased my answer and wrote, "Prove it." The reply came within seconds. Look out your window. Instantly, both of us turned to the window. I only saw the reflection of our faces, blue lit and ghostly, reflecting on the glass. I ran over and, after a quick glance outside, pulled the blinds down. Was someone out there? Marissa whispered. Not that I saw. Come on. That's like the classic scary Reddit response. Look behind you. Look out your window. I'm watching you. You're right. This guy's fucking with us. But what if... We're posting on a throwaway account. There's no way some random person on the internet, lowercase, could know where we live. Her eyes went to the screen, and she paled. They replied. What? What did they say? She turned the laptop to me, and I have very good eyesight. Why did you do that? That could mean anything, I said. They saw you close the blinds. They did not. Come on. Even if they could somehow find us, unless they live like a mile away, they couldn't have gotten here that fast. What if it's a ghost? A ghost using the internet. Really? I stared at her, chest heaving. She looked back at me wide-eyed. No more drinks, I said, grabbing the bottle of whiskey and stowing it under the bed. Come on, it's late. We should go to sleep. Caroline? What? Oh, I'm a lady as well. Well, that's fine. This is what ladies sound like. It's 2026, folks. She was staring at something over my shoulder. I whipped around. Through the tiny gaps in the blinds, I could see the faint glow of red and blue lights flashing. Like a police car was stopped on the street. Like there'd been an accident. Shit. My heart pounded in my chest as I took steps toward the window. Don't look, Marissa said in a small voice behind me. I parted the blinds. Peered out. Nothing. No one was there. The street was dark, completely, save for a single street lamp. There's nothing there, I said, stepping away from the window. They replied, Marissa said in a small voice behind me. Did you read the article? She clicked back to the tab that was still on the link that sent, Drivers die in early Sunday accident on 217. She scanned the website, biting her lip. Ignore it, I said. Okay. We went out to the kitchen and drank some water. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Delightful hydration. The room wasn't spinning so fast. What? Oh, okay. So the room had been spinning previously? We didn't know that. This is Chekhov's broom spin. The room wasn't spinning so fast, and I felt the first waves of sobriety kick in. With it, the whole thing seemed even more stupid. Of course some troll was going to take our bait and reply to our question. Of course. We were just drunk enough to fall for it and scare ourselves shitless. What about the police car lights? Must have been a police car just driving by. This is a dead-end street, idiot. I tried to slow my thoughts and forget about the whole thing as we walked back to my bedroom. Want to watch a movie? I asked, opening the laptop. Sure. Then I froze. We'd left the Reddit page open. And in the... oh, there it is. There it is. I was wondering. Yep, just on... right on cue. As soon as I read these silly stories... I need to warm up on Wednesdays, man. I just need to stand in a corner like frickin' Blair Witch and just do vocal exercises. I'd like to not have phlegm in my throat. Yow, yow, yow. I saw we had 5 replies. Did you read the article? 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 Before I could stop her, Marissa grabbed the laptop and wrote out a response. Yes, we wrote the article. We know you died in a car accident. I'm really sorry for that happened to you. Please leave us alone now. And you're late. And you're late. I wasn't. Ha ha! Ha! That's okay. What have you missed? Story. Two lesbians type silly question on Reddit. Now there's a ghost. And you're caught up. We should be ignoring them. You're just fanning the fire. I want them to stop. And they will if we just ignore them. There was a reply waiting for us. With shaking hands, Marissa clicked it. There was a lot of net traffic. Yeah, and I almost got stun locked by YouTube Shorts. But... Good. What the fuck does that mean? She asked, her voice cracking into my voice, apparently. I grabbed the laptop from her, scrolled up and clicked on that stupid fucking article again. Clearly there was something wrong with it. They wanted us to click it so much. Viruses or a scam or something else entirely. I'd rather know now. But when the article loaded, it was different. The image wasn't of a sedan anymore. It was a silver SUV. Good! I hate SUVs! In fact, it looked awfully similar to my SUV. Good. Wasn't it a sedan before? Oh, wait, that was me. Shit. I don't know. I didn't really look, Marissa said. That looks like my shitty SUV that Chris hates with the power of 1,000 suns. I guess. I glanced at the headline. Drivers die in early Sunday accident on 2/14. The article still didn't name a victim. I turned to Marissa. Wait, 2:14, like a few miles from here? Did it always say that? No, it said 2:17. A horrible feeling settled in my gut. I turned back to the laptop. Every muscle in my body froze again. The headline had changed again. Local women die in early... Yeah, okay, we get it. The lesbians are dead. They're the real ghost all along. Okay? Okay, I get it. Oh, sorry, we need to finish reading the story. I blinked. Local women die in early Sunday accident on Morning Glory Lane. Local women die in early Sunday home invasion. A photo of my house. The window broken. Police cars parked outside. But the article still didn't name victims. And before it could change again, I closed out. I closed out of the window. Out of Reddit. Everything. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Let me get right on that. And closed. And I swear I heard the soft rustle of footsteps outside the window, receding away from the house. 3 asterisks! We called the cops. There were footsteps in the mud, sure enough, leading away from the house. Not much they could do about it. There wasn't an actual break-in, and it was too muddy for the footprints to be examined and matched. They advised us to put up security cameras and told us they'd patrol the street. I don't think that's the end of it, though. I keep waking up to shooting pain in my chest, and a dark red mark beneath my collarbone about an inch long. Like I've been stabbed. Yes, I keep waking up to this pain at exactly 2:33 a.m. each morning, each Sunday morning. I checked my browser history, and that was the exact time Marissa and I clicked on the link. Each week, the pain gets worse. I don't know how much longer I have, or if it'll never kill me and I'll just keep waking up to shooting pain. I know this. Be careful what links you click on. Okay, here's my prediction. Under this is going to be a link to their bibliography. Oh, it wasn't. Well, damn. Hey, you got me. And don't ever post a question online asking the dead how they died. Eh. And that was the best one of the week. Okay. We might be in for a rough ride today. We might be in for a rough one. Oh, no. Oh, good. We have a theme. We have a theme today. Car accidents. Yay. I am so glad that I get to commute to work after this slow week. Well, I mean, how many... That had 1.7 thousand upvotes. 1,700 upvotes. So no, not a slow week. Thank you and apologies to Muffin Recip. Recip? Whatever. Yeah, Muffin Re-C-IP. It's funny because I urinate often because I am hydrated. After my twin sister died in a car accident, I found that I didn't exist. Wait. Wait. Okay. Okay, content warning, self-harm. No, but that was your sister, though. If I go to the hospital, the doctor will only increase my dosage. If I try to explain things to my parents again, they'll just look at me with that sickening, sympathetic, sorrowful gaze that makes me want to scream until my vocal cords tear apart. Right now, I'm hiding in the closet, typing this on an old offline laptop, before my memories are completely wiped clean, after I write all of this down. My name is Faith, and I have a twin sister named Grace. Just 42 days ago, she tragically passed away in a car accident. Grace was that perfect girl, the exact kind of daughter my parents had always hoped for. Gentle, kind, drifting through the mundane details of life like running water, never splashing a drop. She played the cello, and her fingernails were always neatly trimmed. I was the exact opposite. A short-tempered jerk. I feel called out. Do you feel called out? I feel called out. And it's making me angry. I spent half of middle school in detention, either arguing with teachers or beating up girls who trash-talked about my friends. We were like day and night, polar opposites, yet neither of us could live without the other. I'm a tall-tempered jerk. Fair enough. By any reasonable standard, she was the favored child. I don't mean anything by saying that. It was just a fact of our household, like the squeaky floorboard in the living room or how my mom always burnt the pancakes. Grace was loved in one specific way, and I was loved in another. I accepted that long ago. It was raining heavily late that night when the police officer knocked on our door. His hat was soaked through, clutched against his chest tightly. Mom passed out on the spot. And then she burnt the pancakes. Stop burning the pancakes, Mom! I still vividly remember the heavy thud of her head hitting the hardwood floor. For a second, I thought I was going to lose 2 loved ones in the very same day. I knelt beside her, screaming hysterically at my lowercase dad to call an ambulance. But he just stood there numbly, staring blankly at the front door as if Grace might walk in any second, laughing and saying it was all just a bad joke. But she'd never do a thing like that. Only I would. Except that young officer, there was no one at the door. It's just bouncing everywhere. Liam was Grace's friend. What? Where did Liam come from? Maybe her boyfriend. She never talked to me about those things. Seeing him cry so inconsolably at the funeral, I assumed it was the latter. I knew I shouldn't blame him. The police report concluded the other driver was entirely at fault. Yet a fierce urge screamed me. Woo, boy. Yet a fierce urge screamed inside me to go up and demand answers. Why did you convince my sister to go out late at night? Why didn't you protect her? What, against the careening vehicle? Yes. Why didn't you protect her against a 2-ton vehicle that impacted yours? You could have, like, stood in front of it. That would have worked. I've seen signs. Like, the guy who got the woman who got pinned against the wall, she lived for, like, minutes. Why wasn't it you that died? But I didn't. Grace liked everything to be calm, peaceful, and according to plan. so I just gritted my teeth tightly and looked away from him. The impact of the crash was almost entirely borne by the passenger seat where Grace sat. We had to place a thick veil over her face. Standing by the casket, I gently... Wait, you didn't have a closed she was obliterated by a vehicle and you didn't have a closed casket funeral. That's pretty grim. Ah, yes. Here's this human pate that used to be my sister. Let's just put a heavy veil over it. Oh, I also brought some jats. I brought some jats, some crackers. Wait, what do you guys have? I brought some saltines. You know, just in case you want to, you know, just get in there. Yeah. Standing by the casket, I gently touched what remained of her hand. It was freezing cold, like a wild sparrow frozen stiff in the winter night. On her left finger was a faint scar, left by a broken beaker in 7th grade chemistry class. I saw that scar and rubbed it repeatedly with my thumb until Dad walked over, telling me softly to return to my seat for the next part of the service. Grace was truly gone. It took me more than half a month to barely come to terms with it. At least I wasn't staying up all night anymore. Oh, that must be nice! Wait, you weren't staying up all night on NoSleep? Get out of here! Get out of here, you're not doing it right. One morning as I sat in the kitchen island, literally... Oh, no, it says at, not in. That's me. For God's sake, alright. Hold up, let's just take a little step back. Recenter ourselves. And read the goddamn words on the screen, Chris. One morning, as I sat at the kitchen island staring blankly into a bowl of soggy, bloated cereal, Mom walked in. She poured a glass of orange juice and set it down gently in front of me. Here you go, sweetie. Her expression was soft and warm, as if she'd completely forgotten what had happened. You need to get some vitamin C, Grace. Mom, I'm Faith. I kept my voice as soft as possible, afraid to startle her. She froze, staring at me with a hollow look in her eyes. A painful, intensely patient smile forced its way onto her haggard face. Of course, I'm sorry. I'm just so tired. She got up to wash her teacup. Grief makes people hallucinate. It does? Everyone says so. Oh, okay, well then it does. So I didn't push it. I obediently drank the entire glass of orange juice. While she was cleaning the kitchen, I slipped out into the garage. Dad was there, but this time he was uppercase, repairing his motorcycle. Dad, look at me. Who am I? Faith, not now. He didn't even turn to look at me, continuing to tighten his bolts. Hearing his tone sounded normal, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. I sat down on a folding chair nearby, quietly watching him tinker with his auto tools. The smell of motor oil drifted into my nose, bringing a wave of relaxation. I told Dad what had just happened, phrasing it lightly like, you won't believe what Mum just did, joke. He didn't laugh. He became deathly serious. He gripped my shoulders and said, you have to understand that your mother's going through a lot right now. Be a little more patient with her, okay? She's really hurting. Be a little bit more patient with her. Not, don't worry, I'll talk to her, nor, I'm sure she didn't mean it, just, you need to be more patient. As if I were the one who had done something wrong. I stared blankly at his face, suddenly finding it terribly unfamiliar. Who was this man? Was he really my father? Well, I mean, that's a whole different kettle of... That's a whole different bag of worms. Maybe you shouldn't push that too much. I took a swab from underneath his fingernail. I didn't tell him why. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and the smell of motor oil made me feel like throwing up. I wrenched myself free from his grip and sprinted upstairs, locking myself in my room. A slip of the tongue works like this. It happens once, maybe twice, and then it stops. Because someone corrects it, and the person corrected feels embarrassed and adjusts, making sure it doesn't happen again. But that wasn't what was happening here. Over the course of the week, Mum kept calling me Grace. She began bringing up when your sister was still alive in conversations with me as if I were the one who had died. Not the other way around. Then Dad started doing it too. At first, I tried to correct them. I'm Faith. Grace was the one who passed away. I must have repeated similar words 200 times. Yet, every single time I got the exact same reaction. A flash of pity in their eyes, followed by a gentle, indulgent smile. The kind you give a small child who insists Santa Claus is real. All right, sweetheart. All right. They never argued with me even when I started screaming. That was actually worse for me because in the past, whenever we disagreed, Faith and them would have a screaming match. They'd never argued with Grace. You rarely realize how much of your self-identity is actually built on other people's consensus of who you are, until that consensus is ripped out from under your feet. When I looked in the mirror, I was certain I knew who I was. Yet, 5 minutes later, Mom would call me Grace with absolute confidence. My sister, who had died a month ago. I decided to stop arguing with my parents. I needed an outside witness, an uninfected bystander who hadn't been poisoned by my parents' bizarre collective delusion. So, during my next therapy session, I laid out everything that had been happening to Dr. Vance. How Mom mistook me for my sister, how Dad did the same, and how I was completely helpless against it. She listened attentively, nodding every now and then to encourage me to keep talking. Right after the session ended, however, she turned to my parents and said, This is very common. I'll prescribe a bottle of tablets. Make sure she takes them on time, and she will get better. Mum covered her face with her hands and burst into tears. I stared stupidly at the kindly doctor. Just 2 minutes ago, she was comforting me, telling me she believed me. In a blink of an eye, I became the crazy one. Dr. Vance reached toward her bookshelf and pulled out a thick folder. Listen, Grace, maybe you think you're fast, but surely you'll remember that every time we had a session, there was a sign in a record. Yes. She opened it and placed it on the desk between us, spinning it toward me. I saw the overhead fluorescent light cast a cold reflection on the plastic cover of the folder. In the signature column of every single consultation record, there was only one name written. Grace Miller. A beautiful, slanted cursive. Grace's handwriting. My father's stiff writing was on the consent forms and my mother's flowing script was on the others. According to this folder, Grace had been receiving psychological counseling here for over a year. I could hear my own voice becoming high and shrill. I hated it because it made me look like a lunatic desperately needing to be calmed down. No, I didn't write this. I fucking never wrote this. You guys must have mixed it up with the medical records. The rest of the words jammed in my throat because they were looking at me. Mum had lowered her hands at some point. There was no tear tracks on her face at all. Her sobbing outburst most moments ago felt like a figment of my imagination. Mother, father, Dr. Vance, everyone was expressionless, staring at me without moving a muscle. Time for your medicine, Grace. I took the glass of water from my mother, dumped the tablets she handed me into my mouth, and opened wide to show her I'd swallowed them. She looked relieved. The moment she left, I rushed to the bathroom and shoved my fingers down my throat. After a bout of retching, a few white pills floated on the surface of the water before slowly sinking to the bottom. I reached out and pressed the flush handle. I had been kept under house arrest for half a month. Dr. Vance had advised them to do so, claiming I was not quite right and needed to be watched closely. Twice a day, Mom would bring me 2 small white pills in a paper cup like serving a bedridden patient with meals. Then I would smile, drink the water, thank her, and walk into the bathroom and induce vomiting after she left. Why would she use a paper cup? What? You don't want to touch the tablets? What do the tablets do? How bad are the tablets? Every night I would stare at myself in the mirror, searching for changes in my own face. I started noticing details that I couldn't tell were real or fake. When I answered my mother, my voice would unconsciously pitch half a note higher. Becoming Soft and apologetic, just like, well, Grace's voice. I told myself it was stress. I knew trauma could twist a person in strange ways, but on certain nights, a terrifying doubt would creep in. Had I failed to throw up all the pills causing these changes? Eventually, my obedient behavior paid off. My parents relaxed their supervision and I got my phone back. As a sign of trust, Mum said, kissing my forehead as if rewarding a well-behaved toddler. I didn't waste the opportunity. I texted Liam. He replied almost instantly. We agreed to meet that night in a small park a few blocks away, a place he and Grace used to frequent. When the time came, I climbed out my window and sprinted all the way to our meeting spot. Liam was already there when I arrived. Seeing me, he immediately stood up from the bench looking anxious and timid, like a child who'd done something wrong. Hi, Faith, I thought you wouldn't see me again. What happened? I rushed over, threw my arms around him, and began to sob uncontrollably. Once I calmed down a bit, I recounted everything that had happened to me over those days, pouring out every detail. I thought he would look at me in a way everyone else did, treating me like a mental patient. But he didn't. He bit his lip hard, waiting until I finally ran out of words before speaking. Faith, I know you hate me because of Grace, and you probably wish I were dead. I don't mean to offend you, but I still have to say this. Liam was deathly pale, looking like a tubercular mouse. He took a deep breath as if summoning the courage for what he was about to say next. Your parents, they wish that you were the one who died? Did they wish the one that had died was me? Liam didn't seem to notice my reaction and continued his theory. They wish you were the one who died, so they're trying to make you believe your Grace. Maybe they colluded with the therapist. The APA records can be faked after all. I couldn't help but wonder. If Grace had been the one to survive, would things have been better? Grace was so understanding. She would have comforted Mum and Dad so well after Faith died. They would have gradually forgotten the pain and returned to being a perfect family. If only they could erase the short-tempered, obnoxious Faith. Faith, are you listening? I snapped back to reality. Liam was looking at me with deep concern. Don't worry, Faith. I'll help you. I promise I'll help you figure this out. No matter who it is, no matter... no one will help you, hurt you, or change you ever again. So, please stop crying, okay? Only then did I realize I was crying. I don't think I had ever experienced such a profound sense of relief in my entire life. Just one person. I only needed one single person to confirm that I truly existed and I'd found him. I managed to sneak back home before my parents noticed the open window. That night, why would they notice the open window in your bedroom, which I can only assume was closed? Okay. That night, I lay in my bed with a dizzying rush of excitement, playing back the sound of Liam calling my name over and over again in my mind. Faith! Faith! Of course I was Faith! I always had been. That sweet relief lasted until the next morning. I walked into the kitchen, and Mom smiled at me warmly. Good morning, Grace. I couldn't take it anymore and screamed at the top of my lungs. I knew everything. I told them Liam recognized me, that Liam knew exactly who I was, and that if they tried to force me into thinking I was Grace again, I'd call the police. I'd expose their true faces to everyone. I swore it. Yet they didn't panic like people whose conspiracy had been exposed. They simply exchanged a glance, then turned their eyes back to me. Mom spoke cautiously. Grace, sweetie, Liam's dead. A laugh burst out of my throat almost instantly, because it was so utterly ridiculous. I just met him last night, 10 hours ago. We were sitting side by side on a park bench. He told me he would help me and told me not to worry. Dad didn't argue with me. He pulled out his phone and pulled up a news article. A photo I knew all too well. A young man killed in a car crash. A name. Liam's name. grabbed my own phone and searched car accident. I searched car accident without any other information, and it knew exactly what car accident I wanted to see. An identical news report appeared right before my eyes. Liam. The person who had died become Liam. I read that report over and over with every pass, every fiber of my being, realized with terrifying clarity that the ground beneath my feet simply didn't exist. And then, this is the part I still can't fully recall, a blank, blinding white void at the edge of my memory. My parents started telling me the story again, except it was no longer the original version. Its details had shifted naturally, as if it had been this way all along, and I was the one who remembered it wrong. In this new version, Grace and Liam went out together that night, and the one who didn't make it back was Liam. Grace survived. It was Liam's funeral. The person whose finger was cut by the broken beak was also Liam. There had only ever been one girl, and her name was Grace. There was no Faith. Are you suggesting that it was Faith no more? Faith didn't exist. Grace had always been an only child. I found a memory card containing a video oh, sorry, I didn't say. 2 underscores, or maybe they're hyphens. I think they're hyphens. 1 underscore. 1 underscore. I found a memory card containing a video I recorded when I was a child. Even if all the evidence was forged, even if everyone was lying to me, modifying a 10-year-old video is virtually impossible. This was my last hope. I plugged it into an old computer and clicked play. The first thing that came through was my father's cheerful voice. "Look at the camera, girls." On the screen appeared a little girl in a pink swimsuit smiling radiantly at the camera. That was Grace. I held my breath, waiting for the camera to pan left. I remembered that Faith was sitting on the left side of the picnic mat back then, burying her feet in the wet sand, throwing a tantrum because she had lost her sunglasses. The camera panned left. There was nothing there. Only an empty stretch of beach and a blue picnic mat. Little Grace turned her head, looking at that empty spot of sand beside her. She scooped up a handful of sand, threw it into the empty air, and giggled. Off camera, Mum's voice drifted in. "Honey, maybe we should take her to see Dr. Vane." The video ended. A sense of tranquility slowly enveloped me. I could no longer feel the rage burning in my chest. I tried to fight back, I swear to God, I really tried. I've started writing in a beautiful slanted cursive. Maybe Faith was nothing more than a ghost sketched out in my mind, in the mind of a lonely child, a shadow created to bear the negative emotions for Grace. Maybe after being shattered by a car accident, my brain is undergoing some belated self-repair, erasing those memories that shouldn't exist inch by inch, deleting the delusion named Faith, until finally I'm poured back into Grace's body. But if that's truly the case, then who is the me thinking these thoughts right now? I don't know. I can feel my emotions drifting away. Those sharp, jagged thoughts are being smoothed down. The anger that drove me to type these words is slipping away like sand through my fingers. I hear Mom calling me from downstairs. "Grace, sweetie, dinner's ready. I made your favorite tomato soup." Faith hated tomato soup. Just the smell of it made her want to throw up. But now, sitting here in the dark listening to my mother's voice, my mouth is watering. The voice sounds so warm, so comforting, and so delicious. Why does the voice sound delicious? I look down at my hands on the keyboard. They're no longer trembling. My fingers relax, nails trimmed neatly. If you read this, don't look for Faith anymore. I don't think she'll be around much longer. I can feel her dissolving, like a pinch of salt melting into warm water. It doesn't even hurt anymore. Instead, I feel at peace. If the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? I think I'll close the laptop now. I need to go downstairs, wash my hands, and help Mom set the table. I'm going to have the cello lesson this afternoon. Okay. So, why did you then post this to Reddit? Yeah. Well, that was considerably better, but yeah, it's certainly one of those situations like, oops, I accidentally sent this to Reddit even though it doesn't matter anymore. Whoopsie doodle. Mm-hmm. Also, because why is there a warning of self-harm on there? Because she vomited? Was that the self-harm warning she forced herself to vomit? Medication that she thought she shouldn't have been taking? Isn't that the opposite of I'm confused. Or is it because that she had like DID and she dissolved one of her personalities? Like what? I dissolved myself like some salt. I'm not salty anymore. Okay. Thank you and apologies to Twisted Urban Tales with There's a Boy Who Rides the Last Train on My Line, period. Don't let him sit next to you, period. I've been going to my parents' most weekends for 12 years now. Every time I take the same line at the same station. On Saturdays, the last train is the 107. I usually go during the day, but sometimes work runs over and I take the late train. One night on the first year I started making the trips, I ran down the stairs two at a time, went over on my ankle halfway, and got to the platform just in time to watch the doors shut in front of me. The clock above the platform said 1:08. Well, I guess I'd see my parents next week. I sat on the bench to take a breather, then ate the rest of the tuna baguette I'd saved from dinner. The station was completely empty now, and so silent you could hear the vending machine humming from 2 platforms over. Then I heard a train coming. I looked up at the clock, and it said 1:13. Didn't the last one leave at 1:07? At least that's what the timetable said. I glanced at the train again as it came closer. It had the right destination on the front, so I decided not to overthink it and go on. The carriage looked normal, with the usual scratched floor and an advent for the solicitor's firm that does injury claims. Seats were arranged in pairs either side of the aisle. There were only 4 or 5 other passengers, all on their own and sitting spread out. I sat in an empty seat in the middle and we pulled away. A few stops later, the door at the end of the carriage slid open and a teenager came through. Looked 16 or 17 and was wearing big over-ear headphones, black hoodie with the hood up. What? He came halfway along the aisle and sat down next to a man in one of the double seats, a man in his 30s scrolling his phone. Then the man looked up from his phone at the teenager with absolute horror. I'd only ever seen a face make that expression in horror movies. He made a noise like he'd been winded, and he got up so fast he cracked his shoulder on the pole and half went down into the aisle. When he got to the doors, he stood with both hands flat against the glass, waiting desperately for the door to open. When they did, at the next stop, he went out so hard he landed on his hands and knees on the platform. He got some odd looks from a few other passengers in the carriage, but nobody said anything. The teenager hadn't seemed to have noticed. I just assumed he must have been on something and got off 4 steps later. 4 stops later. That was 12 years ago. And other than telling my parents about it at breakfast, I didn't think about it again. Last Saturday, I was down the road from the station at 1:10, which meant I'd already missed it again for the first time in 12 years. I nearly turned round and went home. Right then, I remember the other train. I went down mostly to prove myself I'd made it up, and sat on the same bench to wait. 1:11 on the clock, then 1:13, then the train. The door slid open. This time, there was an announcement as I stepped on. A woman's flat recorded voice. For your safety, passengers are reminded to sit alone. Do not sit beside another passenger. I like trains. I built a basement so that I could house my train collection. I have all of them named, just like the trains from Sodor. I know exactly which train every train is at a glance. I haven't touched a woman in 12 years. I figured it was some leftover post-pandemic rule, but the wording was so absurdly blunt that I actually laughed. It was basically the train announcing what everyone who's ever taken public transport has always wanted. Please, for the love of God, don't sit next to me. I looked around. As instructed, everyone was sitting alone, and there were more than enough empty seats. I sat by myself and the train started moving. Then the doors at the far end of the carriage opened and a teenager stepped through. For a moment, I only thought he looked familiar. Then I looked closer. It was him. The same dark hair, narrow face, black hoodie with the hood up, even the same headphones sitting over his ears. Which I could see with the hood up. I guess he got a really good look at him. And he was still a teenager. Not in the same way someone can look surprisingly young after 12 years. He looked exactly the same. I felt their hairs rise along my arms. The teenager walked down the aisle without looking at anyone, moving with the same absent-minded rhythm I remembered from 12 years ago. He stopped in the middle of the carriage and sat down beside a man who was scrolling through his phone. Then, like something following a script, the man's expression changed. His eyes widened and the color drained from his face as he stared at the teenager like he'd seen something that shouldn't exist. Look, people are just scared of teenagers, okay? They're unpredictable. They're unpredictable. They smell bad. They're unpredictable. They have poor bodily hygiene. They're just terrible. And I am not surprised that someone in their 30s would get up screaming like a banshee, tripping over themselves to get away from one. The only time I've ever been held at knife point was by teenagers. I was in my 20s. I watched him scramble to his feet and press himself against the door exactly the same way he did last time. I saw him, then he threw himself through them and stumbled onto the platform when they opened. My blood ran cold, and my heart started pounding. I couldn't believe what I'd just seen, this exact thing 12 years later. As the doors began to close, my curiosity snapped me into action. Is getting held up by knife point a common occurrence? I guess it's probably more common in Australia where we don't have guns everywhere. But generally speaking, it doesn't just happen unless you're in a more sketchy part of town. I was in a very dark section of the city. I was waiting to catch a bus. And unfortunately, it was where was it? It was across from the entertainment center, but it was just outside of the city proper. So it was this dark area where, you know, there were very few people around. And I guess these kids were just sort of carousing and they wanted money. I'll hold someone up by Moose Point. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys have knives as well. Like, Canada has knives, right? Like, you don't eat with strange implements. You don't, like, after the trees have given the syrup, you don't... Yeah, we have knives and guns, see? So you can hold them up at gunpoint. I suppose we have guns as well, but not really in the same way. It's not like you're just going to walk around holding a pistol. You can... If you're like a farmer, you can get, like, a rifle or something to get rid of pests or threats. Not like people threats, like dingoes or something. Wild foxes, you know, wild boars. Yeah, hunting. But yeah, I was just in a sketchy part of town, sort of, kind of. I was really only like a couple of 100 meters away from the city. But it was just 3 teenagers that held me up at knife point. So in this area there was like a large elevated fence, right? So I kind of was held by it, and then I sort of stood up on this thing, so my feet were sort of at their head level. And I was very earnest about it. I showed them my wallet and was like, look, I don't carry cash. Who carries cash? I don't have any cash. And then they left. It was just one of those things. It's like, yeah. Like, here you go. Look, no money. Okay, bye. It's like, what do you want, my bus pass? Do you want my bus ticket? It's like, come on, guys. Come on, guys. I'm unusually cool in dangerous situations. Like ducks at the park asking for bread. Yeah, more or less. Just, you know, while armed. It was just kind of dumb. Also, it was a funny situation because at that point I was wearing steel-capped boots and I was standing, you know, like the better part of 2 meters above them, and I really could have just kicked heads in if it came to that. So, you know, I wasn't too worried. I wasn't overly worried. I could have taken him. This is a one man versus 3 teenagers situation. It's like, can you beat them? It's like, yeah, they're wiry. They're wiry. Maybe they're greasy. Maybe if I tried to kick their heads, my boot would have slipped off their fop grease and I would have fallen over. Pretty much. Pretty much. I don't play fair. I'm a rat. It's gonna be dangerous. So where was it? Yeah. As the doors began to close, my curiosity snapped me into action. I jumped to my feet and ran for the doors, making it to the platform just before they closed. Hey! The man didn't hear me as I ran after him. He was already running towards the stairs. He reached the bottom of the stairs, stopped, bent over with his hands on his knees and struggled to catch his breath. Then he pulled out his phone with shaking hands and dialed. 911, what's your emergency? The man's voice came out breathless. I need you to listen to me. I just discovered something. He glanced back towards the tracks. A kid sat next to me on the train carriage. That one that comes after 113. He started pacing along the platform, moving farther away from me. I could no longer hear the voice on the other end of the call. He swallowed as he listened to the response. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if I'm going crazy, but you need to warn people. Oh, I'm serious, please. You have to tell people I can't sit next to each other after another passenger on that carriage. The man stopped and listened again for several seconds. Okay, but please investigate it. If you find out it's true, put an announcement on the trains. Anything. Just warn people. Thank you. He hung up and started walking towards the exit. I started walking toward him. Wait! He didn't stop. He just turned and walked around the corner. When I reached the corner and looked around, there was nobody there. Just an empty corridor stretching toward the station exit like it vanished into thin air. I stood there, completely still. And that's when I understood. The announcement hadn't been on the train 12 years ago. It was only there now because he'd discovered what had happened when 2 people sat together in that carriage. Somehow they trap each other. Forever, it seems. I sure won't be taking that train after 107, but yesterday I went back to the station needing to prove myself that I hadn't imagined any of it. At exactly 1:13, the train arrived. I watched from the platform through the windows as the doors opened. There were only a few passengers inside. And here he was. The man scrolling through his phone. Ooh, spooky. Dude's got a Groundhog Day, man. He can do whatever he wants. He's stuck in a stable time loop. He can Bill Murray this shit, man.
And I don't know if it's true, but you love me, and baby, I love you, babe. I got you, babe.
Oh, another one by Muffin Rickett. They've been active. Thank you and apologies once again. With all my friends were murdered. And now I can stand on one foot. What? Huh? Huh? Were they disabled and now they're not because their friends were murdered? What? I guess we'll find out if we read the words on the screen, won't we? I just got discharged from hospital 2 hours ago. I am sitting on the bed in my bedroom with a brand new pair of basketball shoes beside me. Shoes? On sale. Size 11.5. Nike. You know what they say about guys with big shoes, don't they? They have to pay more money. The left foot fits perfectly, but the right side requires me to stuff 3 layers of thick wool socks inside just to barely keep it from slipping off. I'm writing this not to seek sympathy, nor do I intend to ask you for the police's contact information. Geez, what's the number for 911? The case has probably already been made local. What? Yep. Those are definitely not the words that are on the screen, Chris. Come on, Chris. I know you're illiterate, and I know you're a rat, and you're doing your best, but come on. The case has probably already made the local news. If you've been following the state news over the past 2 months, you should have seen the headlines about the Black Pine Woods camping massacre. All of my friends are dead. Regardless of what the police reports say, I just want to tell what happened that night from my perspective. Before I talk about what happened that night, I must first explain to you what kind of person I actually am. Underscore. If you met me for the first time, you probably wouldn't think there was anything wrong with me. I can walk, I can jog, I can go up and down the stairs just like everyone else. If I don't actively tell people, no one could notice or would notice any difference between me and an ordinary person. Wow. Wow. Are you shaming differently abled people while being differently abled? That's impressive. But ever since I was a child, I knew my body was worse than others in certain ways. I couldn't do sports. Not good at it, but completely incapable. The word clumsy was stuck to me like a cutie mark. An innate trait. Just like my congenital amblyopia. It was something destined to never change. So, what is amblyopia? I mean, I imagine like amble as in perambulate, as in to walk. But you said you could walk. Never mind. I was never a picky eater, yet I remained skinny and weak. Oh, it's a soy boy. As if nutrients just slid right out of my stomach. Okay, maybe you're gluten intolerant. Even when walking on flat ground, I would trip and bruise myself all over. Okay, you're gluten intolerant and you have ADHD. Elementary school PE class was practically a public execution for me. Oh, they killed him. Is that why they're all dead now? Oh, amblyopia is... opia is lazy eye. Oh, okay. I guess, yeah, I've never known anyone with it. While other kids ran like wild horses across the playground, I always shrank into the shadows of the bleachers. I tried training myself, but every attempt ended in failure. A comment all the teachers wrote on my report cards at the end of the term was always the exact same line. Quiet, but very creative. Yeah, that just means you suck. It means they have nothing of note to write about you. There was a 50% lie in that, and you can probably guess which half it was. Adults rarely tell a child directly that he's bad at fitting in with a group. They won't say that you don't fit in. They won't say that you're too timid, nor will they say you have nothing particularly outstanding about you. They will only say you are quiet, introverted, and add a line about being very creative that no one could actually see. No, they would also call you conscientious. They'd call you conscientious, right? Because it's very polite to be quiet and withdrawn, because you're not rabble-rousing and you're not making any noise and you're not being disruptive. So you're just conscientious. Yeah, that certainly didn't appear on my report cards. Nope, nope, nope. Not at all. Keep your head down. Keep your head down. But I still had two friends, who are dead, Jonathan and Anna. We were neighbors from the very first day I moved into this neighborhood. We hung out together. They never mocked me for always falling down or my ridiculous bright blue amblyopia glasses. Jonathan would fight off those who picked on me, and Anna would hand me a handkerchief to wipe the water spots off my glasses. Of course. I thought we would be like this forever until they died. Oh, sorry. Until we entered high school and everything changed. Jonathan grew tall and strong remarkably fast, and Anna's facial structure began to mature. Her face started radiating a unique charm that made anyone like her at first sight. This is a very interesting way of saying she became attractive. She changed her name during summer break of 8th grade because the name Anna didn't match my face. Her name is Ivy now. Sorry. Jonathan became the quarterback of the school football team, and Ivy was the cheerleading captain. They were naturally placed at the top of the school's food chain, becoming part of the popular cool kids, and subsequently started dating. Are these your friends that died, or did you end up with other, like, loser friends who died? Were they killed by them? Did they eat them for their flesh? Did they need their adrenochrome? Like, what's going on? Oh, never mind. I thought they would naturally abandon me too. I was already prepared to go find a fellow bottom tier... Wait. Oh shit, is this the start of like Nightmare at... No, not Nightmare at Elm Street. Halloween? What's the one... Is it Halloween or Friday the 13th? They go to a summer camp and all of the school counselors are stuffing each other and then they all get murdered by Jason Voorhees. It's that. It's just that. We're watching that. And the only one that survived was the only person not having intercourse. Because they've got lazy... Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th. Yeah, yeah, it's that. It's that. It's just that. That's what we're reading right now. It's that. I was already prepared to go find fellow bottom-tier freaks to make friends with, but they didn't. Every time Jonathan ran into me in the hallway, he would shout my name loudly to greet me, and Ivy would smile at me and wave. Well, I mean, if they're at the top of the social strata, then they can't really do anything to damage their reputation, right? They're already the coolest kids. So whatever they decide to do will immediately be cool. If Jonathan starts collecting and playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, it's going to be the biggest thing in the school because he's the popular boy. He's the quarterman who throws the pig skin. He lobs that pig so far. Jonathan and Ivy were the king and queen of the school. I was neither nobility nor a commoner, so I was excluded from the food chain altogether. No, that's not how it... Never mind. I still only had the two of them as friends. I suppose I was probably just the jester keeping the king and queen entertained. Wow, they have really high self-confidence. They love themselves so much. There were often rumors in the school saying that Jonathan and Ivy only used me as a tool to run errands or simply treated me as their little pet in their boring lives. But I didn't care, really. They were just occasionally a bit too rough when fooling around. Like, with you? I thought they were dating each other. Even if they now doubled over in laughter whenever I fell, I was still grateful to them. In this cruel high school social circle, it was them who shielded me from the worst of the bottom-tier bullying. If a friendship lasts more than 10 years, it becomes hard to define its decline through simple status gaps. We'd been friends for 10 years. They wouldn't abandon me. Well, until that weekend when Jonathan proposed that we all go camping together. The temperature was very low that day, and the forest was filled with the smell of wet, decaying leaves. A total of 9 people participated in the trip. Beside the 3 of us, there were 3 other football teammates and their girlfriends. Oh my god! Jason Voorhees is gonna come out of the lake and murder everyone that has sex! Yes! They set up tents at the campsite and lit a campfire. If it wasn't at a camp, it would just be a usual fire. Jonathan brought several cases of beer, while Ivy was in charge of turning on the speakers. What a sentence! Hey! Ivy, can you turn on the speakers? You're in charge of that. No worries, I'll turn on the speakers. This is a hard job. There's like a button I have to press. But only I'm important and attractive enough to press the button. Everyone could only listen to her playlist, but it didn't matter. It was full of pop music, so everyone could hum along to a few lines. I sat on a rock a little distance away from the fire, responsible for handing out drinks to everyone. Jonathan kept telling inside jokes from the football team, and everyone was laughing out loud. They were literally lolling. Even I didn't understand them. I laughed along with them. I liked that atmosphere. No matter how terrible a person you were before, knowing that right now you were included in the group made you feel temporarily safe. I thought I was lucky. Then, and this one isn't me. This one's them. Then, an ridiculously tall man walked out from the shadows of the woods. Was he very slender? Was he wearing a suit and had a white face? Oh, fuck off! No fucking way! No fucking way! No fucking way! No way this is real! I haven't pre-read anything. No fucking way. He wore a dirt-covered black apron and held a large machete. Over his face was a leather mask with crude stitching, featuring 2 small holes cut out for eyes. That's right. His outfit was entirely a hodgepodge from low-budget 80s slasher films. So much so that when I first noticed him, I inappropriately thought of Jason Voorhees. Mike, the teammate standing on the outermost side, didn't even have time to fight back before Jason swung the blade at his neck. He screamed frantically, trying to cover the wound with his hands. But it was in vain. Blood sprayed onto the tent canvas like a high-pressure water gun, making the sound of a rain falling on an umbrella. My brain was screaming at me to run, but my legs were heavy as iron. I saw Jonathan try to fight back, only to be kicked flying by Jason, slamming heavily against a tree trunk. No one could fight back against him. He looked so strong, so invincible. He chopped through everyone like vegetables. There were bodies everywhere, along with several limbs and bright red blood. When I was able to finally move my feet and back away trembling, just like all the stupid side characters in horror movies, I was tripped by a tree branch. I fell beside a tent, my glasses dropping to the ground. Through the gap in the tent zipper, I saw a terrified face staring at me. It was Ivy. Her makeup was ruined by tears, or perhaps sweat. Her black eyeliner had smudged into a large blotch, looking somewhat absurd. She stared at me with pleading eyes, shaking her head at me, begging me not to expose her. This was the first time Ivy had ever looked at me like that, so I dragged myself up from the ground with all my strength, shouting and screaming as I ran in the other direction, attempting to draw the killer's attention. But he ignored me completely. He could smell that I was a virgin. I wasn't having sex virgin because he's Jason Voorhees, and he knows who has sex. Sorry, my editorializing is... But he ignored me completely, walking straight towards Ivy's tent. He unzipped it and stepped inside. A brief scream echoed out. The voice was very raspy and didn't sound much like Ivy's. Then came the dull thud of a sharp... the dull thud of a sharp weapon plunging into her flesh, and a slender figure collapsed, the arc of spraying blood showing exceptionally clear under the firelight. Now I was the only one left. I was the final girl. I slumped onto the ground, my back drenched in cold sweat. He dropped the blood-stained blade and stopped in front of me, heavy, turbid breathing coming from behind the mask.
Hey, hero, stand up. Let's play a game.
His voice was very hoarse, apparently, like two pieces of sandpaper rubbing against each other. I was shaking violently all over, using every ounce of strength just to prop myself up against a nearby wooden stake and stand steady.
Stand on one foot for me. If you can hold it for 10 seconds, I'll let you go.
The cadence of his voice arched upwards in a bizarre way at the end, just like a little girl who had found a beloved toy.
3, 2, 1.
He began to count. I took a deep breath and slowly raised my left foot. Although wobbly, I tried my best to stay balanced. He watched my performance with great interest, then said,
Now switch to standing on your left foot.
No. I've always felt that there are very strange things inside the human body. They don't affect your normal life, so you rarely notice them. Eventually, even forgetting they exist. Not until one day someone suddenly magnifies these hidden defects in your body, making them the key to deciding your life or death. What? Making them the key to deciding your life or death. Do you realize how much you shouldn't have ignored them? Okay. I couldn't stand using only my left foot. My left leg was abnormally weak and frail. Oh, gee whiz, I wonder what happens. Do you think he survives? Do you think he Do you think he survives? Aside from my parents, only Jonathan and Ivy knew about this. I didn't know if this killer acted on a whim or what, but clearly I was going to die now because I definitely didn't write the rest of this story, so I am definitely 100% dead because of this stupid flaw. Regardless, I had to try, but almost instantly my right foot left the ground and an intense sense of imbalance washed over me. My left ankle felt as if it was made of Play-Doh, completely unable to support my weight. Before even 2 seconds had passed, I fell down.
Again!
I scrambled up in a panic to try again. This time I held on for 4 seconds, but my ankle twisted unnaturally once more, sending me crashing sideways into the fire pit next to me, burning several holes into my clothes with sparks.
Again!
I tried again and again. Failing time after time, as dirt, blood, and tears mixed on my face. I knew I must look hilariously foolish right now. My left ankle was already sprained, throbbing with excruciating pain, but I didn't dare stop, because that large machete was hovering right above my head. When I fell yet again, Jason dropped the machete and burst out laughing.
God, I can't hold it anymore! How can somebody be this clumsy?
I told... Wait. Oh. Of course. I told you he couldn't do it. A familiar voice suddenly came from behind me. I turned my head. It was Ivy. She was covered in bloodstains, but standing there completely fine. Immediately after, more laughter rang out from the surrounding shadows. Say, I told you, this guy can't even hold it for 3 seconds, even with a knife pointed at his head. Jonathan, who had originally been lying slumped against a tree, stood up, wiped the fake blood off his face, and laughed so hard he could barely catch his breath. The other dead friends also picked themselves up from the ground, one after another, high-fiving and cheering. Jason Voorhees took off his mask. He wasn't Jason, he was Jonathan's cousin Andy. This was a meticulously planned prank aimed solely at me. The blood was a mix of red ink and corn syrup. The machete had a retractable blade, and those severed limbs were Halloween props they'd bought for a few $dozen. The sky was dark and immersed in terror. I had been completely unable to tell the difference. They went through all this effort simply to verify a joke Jonathan had made. Even under the threat of death, I wouldn't be able to stand on 1 foot for more than 10 seconds. They won! Ivy gave me a hug, thanking me for not exposing her earlier, though she hadn't expected that I wouldn't even realize it wasn't her voice. For theatrical effect, Andy had volunteered to perform that scream for her. Jonathan patted my shoulder. Hey man, you know what the most amazing part is? What? All of us thought in a situation like this, you would definitely burst out with some hidden potential, like suddenly becoming super badass and knocking the killer out with one punch. The muscles on his face twisted strangely as he tried desperately to hold back his laughter. Turns out you're still the exact same. The spot Jonathan had patted throbbed with a dull ache. I stood in place, hearing my own voice come out of my mouth. That is really pretty funny. Jonathan spread his arms wide, making weird noises while flailing wildly with his hands in the air, mimicking the posture I just used when trying to balance my body.
Oh God, please don't kill me. I'm a massive loser. I can't even stand straight.
He looked both stupid and ridiculous, and I couldn't help but laughing out loud too. I sat on the ground laughing along with them at my own stupidity, clumsiness, and absurdity. As Jonathan moved closer and closer to me, his movement suddenly became somewhat stiff. His eyes opened wide, and the laughter in his throat turned into a bubbling, gurgling sound squeezed from deep within. I wanted to say that his acting was really good, so good that I couldn't recreate it this perfectly myself, so stop it. Didn't... What? Don't come any closer to me. What? Until I saw a real machete pierce straight through his chest. Hot blood dripping down the tip of the blade, landing right on the toe of my shoe. Jonathan collapsed heavily at my feet like a... Oh my god. Jonathan collapsed heavily at my feet like a heavy sack of potatoes. Delete. Delete this word. You don't need this word. You don't need... Don't say you collapsed heavily like something heavy. Delete... Oh dear. Standing behind him was a stranger. He wore clean grey overalls and an old newsboy cap with thick metal framed glasses resting on the bridge of his nose. He looked very ordinary, just like a biology teacher preparing to start a lesson. See, the really scary thing is, oh no, real murderers don't look like crazy, creepy people. The real murderers just look like ordinary people who murder you. That's just, Yeah, they're not genetic freaks. They're just like some guy. You just get killed by some guy. Remember that in future. Don't kids these days know anything about manners? He sighed, his gaze sweeping across everyone's face. 10, still 9 left. All right then. This time it was definitely not a prank because Ivy began screaming for real. He didn't run around chasing people with a machete like Andy did. He kicked Jonathan aside, then raised the shotgun in his... When did he suddenly spawn a shotgun? In his hands and took aim. Everything ended very quickly. I sat paralyzed next to Jonathan watching it all happen. The campsite finally fell silent. Nothing remained except the crackling of the campfire and the sound of blood gurgling in the dirt. Are you kidding me? He equipped it from his inventory. He hot swapped. He just hot swapped. It's just like, don't worry, time for me to press 2 on my inventory. There we are, shotgun, good. Good. Oh, this is one of those cheap video games, so it just appears in my hands. There's no animation of me equipping it. Don't worry about it. He squatted down in front of me. I was surprised that I could still notice his clothes weren't stained with much blood, only a few tiny specks of blood spattered on his glasses. Stand on 1 foot for me. He looked at me, speaking in an extremely gentle, almost encouraging tone. Perhaps I was too desperate, or perhaps because the prank earlier had already exhausted all my fear, I actually felt a long absent sense of calm at this moment. I said, "No, I can't." "Stand up, left foot only." I used my hands to support myself as I stood up, trying to raise my right foot, but my body lost balance once again. I fell right at his feet. I can't do it. I really can't. I lay on the ground, burying my face deep into the dirt. Even now, I can still recall that smell of earth mixed with blood and the feeling of wanting for him to blow the back of my head off with his gun. I've never been good at sports. My coordination is terrible. I'm a loser. I can't do it. I could feel his gaze watching me, and he let out a sigh. I quietly raised my head and found him sitting on top of Jonathan. Jonathan was very close to me and not quite dead yet. His lungs seemed to have been punctured, blood bubbles overflowing from the corners of his mouth. Every breath sounded like a broken bellows, which I definitely know what it sounds like. The man gently patted my shoulder, pulled me up from the ground, and wiped the dirt off my face. "Good boy. Take off your shoes and socks." Is he a podiatrist? It would be really funny. It would be really funny if he was a podiatrist. He was a wandering podiatrist that just happened to be equipped with a machete and a gun in the forest on his own. He's just walking around. "Oh, I don't like the fact that they were making fun of this child with bad feet. I'm going to I'll teach them a lesson." I knew this request sounded very strange, but I didn't dare disobey him. Whatever was going to happen next, I was already prepared as long as I could survive. Killing the others is bad for business? Well, they were all athletes and cheerleaders. Clearly, they had good feet. I untied my shoelaces and took off my shoes and socks. He reached out a heavily calloused hand and grabbed my left ankle. His hand was very cold, like ice. He began forcefully twisting my ankle. Clockwise, counterclockwise. "Stand up, try again." His tone was no longer gentle. I endured the excruciating pain in my ankle to stand up again, only to fall once more. But this time he caught me and sat me down on the ground. "I know where the problem is." He pointed below my ankle. "Your talus has a congenital deformity, and the medial ligament in your ankle joint is extremely loose. This isn't a coordination issue, it's an anatomical defect. Your body structure is limiting you." He raised his head and looked at me with absolute seriousness. "It's not your fault, but don't worry. I will fix this." That was the last sentence he said to me under the dim firelight. That is the entirety of my memory. When I woke up again, I was already lying in a hospital room. Countless people walked back and forth in front of my hospital bed, constantly asking questions and arguing about something. They told me that when the police found the campsite, 2 officers even threw up. Most of the victims had missing limbs to varying degrees, and the missing body parts were not found at the scene. It was tentatively speculated that he took them away. Did he perform surgery on you with parts of healthy people? Well, healthy corpses. Ugh. Everyone died and I survived. The nurse told me to mentally prepare myself and then pulled back the blanket covering my lower body. I don't remember that part of Friday the 13th. Are you saying that Jason Voorhees wasn't a highly trained surgeon? It's a miracle. It's an absolute miracle. When we found you at the scene, your lower left leg had been already severed. The lead doctor stood by my bed, speaking quickly and softly, making me try very hard to hear what he was saying. No wonder I had no sensation in my left leg. But to be able to survive was already lucky enough. I looked down at my lower body. My right leg was completely intact, while my left leg, about 5 centimeters above the ankle bone, there was a gruesome ring of dark purple sutures. 2 pieces of flesh were forcibly bound together by... Oh no, Jonathan! By the stitching, 1/10 of my body had turned into Frankenstein. The foot below the sutures was 2 whole sizes larger than my right foot. Man, the implant rejection is going to be crazy. What are you talking about? Some strange hillbilly in the middle of the forest just performed surgery on this guy. He'll be fine. You're buying shoes is going to suck. Yeah, it's going to cost twice as much. Well, no, it said at the start of the story that they were just stuffing crap in their other shoe. So I guess they didn't bother. They only bought one pair of shoes like an idiot. Clearly, they should have bought 2 pairs of shoes. Or what they could have done is they could have gone... Well, okay, what you do is you go into like a Target or something, you know, a shop that has self-serve, and you get the 2 correct sized shoes, but you only scan like the 1 barcode. So you still buy the shoes you need. They're mismatched as far as sizing goes, but they'll fit you, right? I think that would be the way to go about it. I'm not suggesting that if you have like a half-sized foot that you go into Target and you effectively steal half a set of shoes. What was I saying again? The foot below the sutures was 2 whole sizes larger than my right foot. Its skin tone was wheat-colored, and there was a distinct callus worn onto the edge of the right big toe. A mark left by wearing cleated shoes for a long time. That was Jonathan's foot. He had cut off Jonathan's left foot and sewn it onto me. We are actually prepared to perform a second high-level amputation on you. In a kind of outdoor environment with zero sterile conditions, the infection rate and rejection reaction for an allergenic limb transplant almost 100% fatal, but for some reason, the doctor pointed to the place where I was sewn together. He looked like he really wanted to reach out and touch it. You recovered exceptionally well. Your immune system seems to have completely accepted this foot. It's because they were such good friends. The doctor said he had never seen anyone survive such a crazy transplant surgery without any lingering side effects. He even asked me to be a volunteer for his new research project, but I declined. For 2 full months, I was busy being questioned by the police. What did he look like? What happened that day? Why did he spare you? And my answer never changed. Very ordinary. A prank and a massacre. I don't know. Of course I chose to tell the truth. I told them every piece of information I knew. I don't know why this case remains unsolved even after I fully recovered. Maybe they spent the taxpayers' money somewhere else. Or, this is going to be a shock to you, a lot of the time, many of these cases go unsolved. Much less now. No shit, no one survives such a transplant. It doesn't happen. Are you telling me that this NoSleep story on this fictional website doesn't really this is a falsehood? Are you telling me someone lied on the internet? Huh. But yeah, with the technology we have now and everybody freaking giving away their DNA for free, it's becoming exceptionally easier to solve these cases. So I am not surprised that they aren't surprised that the case wasn't solved. It's like, oh my god, every DNA database in existence, everybody's mapped, and if they're not mapped, their relatives are mapped. It's like, oh, it was him that did it. He's the only one who could possibly have done it. That guy. What's his name? Basin Voorhees? That doesn't even make sense. Who would name their child Basin? At any rate, after finishing all the psychological therapy and rehabilitation training, I completed my discharge procedures today. The psychologist suggested I find someone to talk to and not keep everything bottled up inside. I went to the store, bought 2 bottles of milk and a pair of new sneakers, then came home and opened my computer. Ta-da! And here I am. I've recovered very well and I feel great. Aside from the 2 feet being completely asymmetrical in size, forcing me to buy 2 pairs of shoes in different sizes. Just go to Target, mate. Jonathan's foot is really great to use. It's strong, powerful, and springy. I can even feel the blood circulating smoothly through those 5 thick toes. This is perverted. There's something perverted about this. Is this a fetish? By the way, I can stand on 1 foot now. I can stand for a long time, and I can even stand with my eyes closed for over a minute. Good night, Anna. Good night, Jonathan. May you rest in peace in heaven. And thank you for everything. I think it was just funny. It was funny that I predicted their joke. I think that was really funny. They even used Jason Voorhees' name. That was funny. The rest of it was also there. That was funny. Thank you and apologies to Guy Orcs with we hired a handyman who fixed our house and destroyed our lives. Yay! That's okay. They can sell the house. Now it's going to be worth more because it's fixed. My husband and I... Why am I a lady today? Why am I a lady so many... That's fine. That's fine. I'm a lady today. I just have to remember that. My husband and I had been so proud when we bought our first house. First? Even though it was a fixer-upper, we were excited to build a life together after getting married. Yay. The humble, weathered starter home was all we could afford with our meager combined salaries, but we hadn't cared. It was easily beyond the scope of what we could repair ourselves, though. Jammed door hinges. I'm pretty sure you could fix jammed door hinges. Broken floorboards, crumbling walls, cracked windows, collapsing shelves. You can't fix shelves? You can't fix shelves? It's just... Oh, okay, that's fair. But every time so far, it's all been... Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, no, my wife. Sorry, I'm a lady. I'm a lady. It says right here. It says right here, I'm a lady. Shut up, I'm a lady. Shut up, I'm a lady. Well, it's 2026. That seems about right. We both agreed that if we were going to make this place presentable for visitors and ourselves, we would need some help. Hi, lady, thank you. And then came the solution to all these issues. One of my husband's work colleagues gave him the name of a handyman we could contact. Apparently, the guy's services were more than affordable. More importantly, he was supposedly the perfect handyman. Oh, I think I know why their marriage broke up. His colleague, Scott, said that there was nothing he couldn't fix, except for our marriage. But instead, he got with my husband, so there is a gay couple just for Dozer. If I had known then what would happen to our lives, we would have told Scott to shove it. We would have just happily lived together in that rundown house as if it was a mansion instead. Those crumbling interiors would have been far safer for us. But instead, Daryl reached out to the handyman that night.
Hello, handyman Jim speaking. You break it, I fix it. What can I do for you today?
Came a cheerful and deep male voice from the phone. Just for me. Yes, only for you. Nobody else, though. Hi. My wife and I are in desperate need of a handyman for... Where should I start? Daryl and I decided that the first thing we would have Jim repair was the busted staircase and landing railings. Not only was it one of the biggest safety risks for our house, but it wouldn't take as long for him to complete as some of the other needed repairs. What do you mean, like broken windows? I'm pretty sure he could have fixed those pretty quickly. The perfect trial job to assess the quality of his work. Oh yeah, pretty much the most expansive and important thing. He can fix that first. He arrived promptly at 10 a.m. sharp the next day. Okay, now you should be surprised. Now you need to be worried. That's the first red flag. I don't have a red flag emoji. That's a red flag. Look, the dude's turned up on time. He turned up on time? A tradesperson turning up on time? What? Yep, nope. This is a scam. Okay. I was stunned at what I saw. Jim the handyman looked to be in his mid-40s, and yet, at the same time, he looked remarkably well preserved. With a full head of short-cropped brown hair, a wide and bright smile, and a fit and muscled body, he definitely didn't look as if the years of hard work had worn him down at all. In his neatly pressed carpenter overalls, stepped out of his pickup truck and walked over to us on the front porch. You must be Jeanette and Daryl. What a pleasure to make your acquaintance. He beamed in that polite, rumbling voice, shaking our hands. Now, where is this damaged railing you need help with? We led him inside to the what do you mean? It's like, where's the damaged balcony railing? Are you sure you're a handyman? It's upstairs. And it's a railing. If you can't identify that immediately, well, I'm not sure that we can really pay for your services. It doesn't matter how attractive you are. Wait, what? We led him inside to the damaged balcony railing in question, and he instantly got to work on it. For the most part, Daryl and I stayed out of his way as he shuttled back and forth to his truck to get supplies or lay down tarp. I did catch glances of him working occasionally, though, hammering in nails and drilling through wooden pieces. Oh, he was drilling? He moved fluidly and quickly, as though he'd done this a million times before and always knew exactly what to do next. It was like a calling for him. Any doubts I may have had were instantly eased by me knowing this was clearly an experienced professional. Only a few hours later, I heard the sounds of construction stop and saw Jim poking his handsome face around the living room door to tell us he was done. The handiwork we saw when Daryl and I observed the final result, 2 spaces, was simply incredible. Polished, neat wooden railings lined the stairway upstairs landing, with not a single dark wooden pillar out of place. Resting my hand against it, the railing was as secure as it looked. As the cherry on top, Jim had cleaned up the area immaculately, leaving behind not even a loose nail. Well, I should bloody well hope not. In the middle of us, our rinky-dink house, there was a first-class quality banister and staircase. If this was the kind of quality he brought to one job, imagine how he could transform the rest of our home. Oh, it's Daryl. Wow! Thank you so much! This is a fantastic job! And done so fast too! Daryl exclaimed, as thrilled by the work as I was. Jeanette, can you grab my wallet, dear? For a job of this quality and speed, anyone could have expected a fee of tens of thousands of dollars. But to our utter elation, Jim charged us only a mere percentage point of that amount. That should have been the first red flag. No, the fact that he was on time was the first red flag. Idiots. Stupids. That you ultimately get what you pay for. But I didn't pay it a second thought, choosing to gleefully accept that this handyman was just a kind and charitable soul, helping out newlyweds and building up a client base. There was strange behavior from Jim, however, that did attract my attention, at least for a second. When Daryl handed him the wad of cash notes, instead of placing them straight in his pocket, Jim separated them. Splitting every pile exactly in half, he then placed each smaller stack into one of his left and right back pockets. It was at this point where I noticed how perfectly symmetrical his clothing was, from his shoes to his sleeves, not even a birthmark or stain imbalancing the mirror images. Hey, balance is wait, how did it... Hey, I don't even remember his voice anymore. Hey, balance is important, right? He grinned, noticing our quizzical expressions. It's what keeps houses from toppling on their sides, and people too. We both chuckled at this quip and dismissed the quirk. It was often the most brilliant, capable people with some of the oddest habits, after all. So he's autistic. So what you have here is an autistic carpenter. Be kind. And brilliant his work had been, Daryl and I both already knew that we wanted to use more of Jim's services. By that same evening, we were already picking up the phone to book Jim for another job, this time to repair the ceiling of our entryway. Unfortunately, this was the night that Daryl's phone decided to break out of nowhere, so we made the call on my mobile instead. Jim picked up just as promptly and happily as he had before, and so began our many months of employing Jim's handyman services for our house. Every new job that he completed for us was as top-notch as the first had been. Just as he had for our staircase job, he would show up on time and complete the job the same day, even for jobs which I might have anticipated would take more. He also worked solo each time. Only he would show up in that grey pickup truck every morning and leave in it each afternoon. The man was an absolute workhorse in the amount of progress he made in the gaps between checking in on him. All throughout this time, Jim was perfectly professional and we continued getting along with him. We even tried to respect his little idiosyncrasy for balance, serving him snacks on a symmetrical tray or water with symmetrical cubes. I even mended a rip in his shirt one day so it could be perfectly symmetrical. Anything to repay his generosity. Section by section, our house began to look less dilapidated and more like a nurturing family home. The kind of place where we could soon start to plan raising children in. We'll just think about it, but we won't do it because those things are gross. However, keeping us from this decision were the setbacks that began occurring. Like the cell phone that had gone kaput out of nowhere, more and more devices around our household began to break as well. We would have written this off as the wear and tear of daily life, but every one of these failures in turn triggered some kind of dangerous incident. And what I soon began to notice was this would always be after one of Jim's miraculous repair jobs. Yeah, it's almost like there's some sort of, balance occurring. Like some kind of symmetry. It's almost as if it's the yin and yang of Jim. One day, Jim fixed our wobbly kitchen countertop. Our main TV set broke. As a result, we missed an emergency weather warning, almost drowning in a flash flood during a visit to the beach. What? On the day Jim replaced our cracked living room windows, one of my high heels snapped. As a result, I almost stumbled off the side of a skyscraper roof while we were out at dinner. Why were you on top of a roof during dinner? What? One day, Jim repaired our rotted attic floorboards. Daryl's car brakes failed. As a result, he almost drifted into oncoming traffic on his way to work one morning before he got it under control. Okay, well, here's a thought. Stop hiring him. If you think that correlation is causation, stop hiring him. Even on the night that the phone had glitched out after Jim's first repair job, we had almost been left unable to contact the police when we saw thieves breaking into nearby houses. The timing of these coincidences was so peculiar and consistent. Of course, it couldn't be Jim breaking our stuff. He was already packed up and gone from the house each time a possession of ours called it quits. Maybe our pride in improving house was making us complacent on how he took care of our other belongings. Unlike the various scrapes we got into, Jim never got a scratch on him. We put this down to workplace safety. Of course, a tradesman as skilled and journeyed as him would take precautions as to not get hurt on the job. However, the man never got so much as a splinter. Strangest of all was the time his nail gun misfired. I could have swore I saw the sharpened nail bounce off his skin before hitting the ground. Probably a trick of the light, but it didn't draw blood. Talk about calluses. We had hoped that our bad luck with appliances might lift as our house renovations neared completion. Sadly for us, it would be just the opposite. I'll never forget the day that my inhaler broke. Endlessly gasping for air, clicking the jammed asthma puffer with no avail. Jim had just left after retiling the bathroom when my throat closed up. I don't know how I got my breathing under control that day, and I came back from the brink of death. The strange series of misfortune with our property had taken its toll on mine and Daryl's marriage now. For one of the first times in our relationship, we argued openly about how to proceed. My husband couldn't bring himself to believe my theory that Jim's repair work and our perilous device failures were interlinked. Symmetrical, even. He didn't believe what I'd seen with the nail gun either. It's because he's attracted... It's because he's attracted to Jim, okay? Your husband is attracted to Jim. He wants him more than you. I'm just saying. I should have fought harder, but I didn't. We agreed instead to let Jim finish his current projects before letting him go. Years prior, my husband had gotten an insulin pump installed to help control his diabetes. This was the next device of ours to suddenly lethally break. So he's dead. So he's dead. Okay. Once Jim had finished fixing our broken bed frame. Wait, okay, hold on. So, I mean, you bought the house. Did you buy the house furnished? Or did you just happen to wait, he has diabetes and the bed frame is broken? You know what? Never mind. I ran into the hospital room in panicked tears, terrified of what I'd find. My poor Daryl was in a diabetic coma. He'd suffered a stroke from the insulin imbalance. As I sat by his bedside all weekend weeping in regret, I didn't see how things could get any worse. Until I remembered. Jim was booked to revamp our backyard patio awning today. Every time he fixed something in our house, something critical in our lives broke. Looking at my unconscious husband, the wires and tubes hooked up to him, a horrified realization set in. Hi, you've reached Jim the Handyman. I'm currently completing a job and I can't answer your call. Please leave a message. That same answering machine message played again and again as I left messages pleading with Jim to cancel the job, to finally end his corrosive effect on our lives, to leave us be with our lives intact. By the time I arrived at my house, however, it was too late. I saw Jim walking out of our house, his toolbox in hand, that same shiny white smile glinting at me. Job's all done, he cheerfully stated and winked. Up until then, I'd thought that maybe Jim's strange curse upon us was unknown to him. But any notion that he was oblivious to his destruction was dispelled in that instant. He knew what he was doing to us. At the exact moment my phone rang, tear-stricken, I knew what the call would be before I answered. The hospital mournfully went on to inform me that my husband's life support equipment had stopped working out of the blue. He was dead. Yes, I'm single! And the sinister being in front of me was the reason. I glared in fury at Hell's Handyman, the one who had taken away my husband through his lethal supernatural curse. Get the fuck out of here! I screamed, my voice shaking. What the hell did you do to me and Daryl? Jim just laughed, as if I told him a mild joke instead of accusing him of murdering my husband. Gosh, I didn't do anything to him. I guess the universe just appreciates balance as much as I do. And there's a price for every fix. His voice now yielded a malice that overtook his entire folksy persona. As for me no longer helping you, I'm afraid I can't do that. There's still more work left to be done on your house. It's not like anything can get rid of me. I mean, hey, you saw that yourself. So, what do you want me to fix next? Horrified, I thought back to the nail bouncing off his skin, and to his well-preserved appearance. The creature in front of me wasn't human. It wasn't going to leave me alone. It wasn't going to die either, not until his balance had killed me too. Balance. An idea flashed through my mind. In a flash, I raced... God, I hate it when people do this. Please. Please, please. There are so many words in the English language. We don't need to double up. We don't need to double up. Immediately, I raced past the eldritch handyman into the house. Moments later, I emerged with two objects. Facing the amused Jim, I held the mended shirt up in front of him. You love balance, right? Well, I fixed this for you. Which, by your rules, means I can destroy something of yours too. Mirthfully, I tossed the clothing at his feet. Why do you have his clothing? Why did you... Wait. Why do you have his clothing? Why was it in your house? Wait, it was his house, right? Hold on. Yeah, into the house. What? Mirthfully, I tossed the clothing at his feet. Jim looked down at it for a second and looked up just in time to see the gun pointed at his chest. Bang! The bullet I fired into the being's chest did not bounce off this time. Instead, blood gushed from the wound. Jim looked up at me, his trademark smile gone, and demonic rage flickered on his eyes for a second. Then he slowly turned, shambled to his pickup truck, and drove away. Just like that, the cursed being which had threatened to dismantle what remained of my life was gone. It's been years since that day, and I still live in that home. Far from a starter home, I plan on living out the rest of my life in it. Daryl died for this house after all, and all this time, Jim hadn't returned to finish me. That hasn't stopped me from waiting on the front porch swing every morning, shotgun in hand just in case. I'll admit that it is a beautiful porch swing to keep watch for a demon handyman on. That bastard did a fine job building it. Yeah, I mean, it's a little weird that his shirt was inside. So he tore his shirt and you asked him to remove it so that you could sew it up. And then you held on to it, which I can only assume means you then watched him do the work shirtless. Are you sure that Daryl didn't disable his own, like, diabetes pump? Are you sure about that? Anyway. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that was okay. That was alright. Oh, a series? No series, please. No series. Next up, let me have a drink of water first. Let me have a drink of water. I'll shake out the sillies. Ah. Okie dokie. Let's give it an old stretcheroony. Okay, thank you and apologies to Scary Max with If You Hear the Desert Hum. It's probably too late. When I was young and nothing scared me, I used to camp in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes I went by myself, but more often I dragged whatever guy I was dating out with me. Do you think the universe is trying to tell me something here? Do you think the universe is trying to tell me something? Because I'm not too sure anymore. I'm starting to feel a little pressured here. My version of a perfect day was to find a little used path, park at the trailhead before dawn, and hike as far as we could before setting up camp by sunset. If things went according to plan, we wouldn't see another soul the whole time. I worked as a hostess at a middle-of-the-road Asian fusion restaurant at the time, and I developed a dim view of people. I spent all day getting hit on, condescended to, and falsely accused. I witnessed 1,000 petty tantrums over incorrect seasonings and insufficient amounts of ice in drinks. To me, going a full weekend without seeing a stranger equaled bliss. My boyfriend at the time was Caleb, a few years older with a CS degree. I didn't realize you could get a degree for Counter-Strike. That's pretty cool. He wasn't your typical tech bro, just happened to be good with code. If you met him, you'd clock him as a barista or the bartender at a dive bar. He had a great vinyl collection, a dozen tattoos and a tongue ring. Beyond all his hipster affectations, he also loved getting out of the city and melting into the quiet of dense woods, which made him a perfect match for me. Also, can we just sort of... So I'm a lady who decides that after dating a guy for what I can only assume is a short period of time, I take him to a second location. Man, I'm brave. Caleb would spend the week grinding out 12-hour days writing code for a game company and then show up at my house late Friday night with his hiking bag meticulously packed, ready to escape civilization for as long as possible. After about a year of dating, we'd hit most of the best local spots multiple times. A 4-day weekend was coming up and we decided to head east into Utah, the next state over, and camp in the desert where we could escape the winter cold. I'd read online about a large basin that was almost totally flat for miles in all directions. It was a potentially miserable, sun-scorched hike, but this was the right time of year to tackle it. It also promised total solitude and a view of the Milky Way worth writing home about. The drive was long and surprisingly warm once we hit the state border. Caleb had a decent car, but the AC was out and had been putting off getting it fixed since we were in the middle of January. We were sweating most of the way. Even so, the vibe was good. Caleb would put together a playlist full of my favorite songs, even obscure ones. "How'd you know I like old surf rock?" I asked.
You mentioned it on our third date,
He said.
while we were eating that Capri salad that you hated at Lucia's.
I didn't hate it, I said.
You called it overly wet.
I couldn't help smiling at him. "You've got a big brain, you know," I said. "You shouldn't waste it on remembering my salad opinions."
It's hard to imagine something more important than your salad opinions.
He said, shooting me a coy smile. Why does he sound like that? I like the flattery, I guess. If you asked me at the time, I guess I would have said that Caleb was one of the only people on Earth who didn't annoy me, which was pretty stellar praise coming from me. We got off the highway somewhere along the edge of Utah. We took surface streets, then dirt roads until we go to an overlook that abutted a seemingly infinite expanse of desert. The ground was cracked mud, little islands of caked red-white earth that broke underfoot when you stepped on them. Caleb knelt and broke some of the dried mud with his fingers.
It does that when the floods and gets really dry real fast, he said. Pretty cool, right? Like walking on graham crackers.
Sorry, I'm a foreigner. I don't know what those are. Walking on graham crackers. We didn't have a trail so much as a direction. We walked vaguely northeast toward the center of the vast empty place, actively seeking the middle of nowhere. We didn't talk much, which I appreciated. The winter sun hung low in the sky, slinging long shadows. With my backpack on, mine looked like a strange stilt walker in the circus. I almost tripped several times looking at it. Okay, pause. Just a slight pause, just a slight aside. Okay, so you're a disaffected, misanthropic woman who doesn't have deep connections with anybody except for her partner at the time, and you've decided to actively go into the middle of nowhere where nobody knows where you are, assuming, probably correctly, that you never let anybody know where you were going. This is a very good way of getting murdered. I'm just going to put it out there. This is a great way of getting murdered. Okay? So, I guess, ladies, gentlemen, if you want to get murdered, do this exact thing. I mean, clearly they're not going to get murdered. It's got something to do with something being in the desert, but whatever. Don't do this. Don't go to a second location. Whew. We'd gone maybe 2 miles when I first heard the hum. It was faint enough that I dismissed it at first. It was like a concert playing 10 miles away, the sound waves muffled by distance. You hear that? I asked.
What?
Like a sound, sort of like... I was no singer, but I think I did a pretty good job. Did I? It was 2 distinct notes, each playing for a second or two in an endless repetition.
Maybe tinnitus?
He said.
Didn't you say that you had that back in high school?
That was different, I told him. That was like a constant ee. This was more like music. Distinct notes.
Huh,
He said.
could be wind.
What wind? I said, gesturing. There's no wind.
Oh, I meant like maybe wind far away, and you're just hearing the sound it makes?
So why aren't you hearing it? I asked.
I don't know, I'm 5 years older than you. I listened to my music way too loud in high school. I probably fucked my eardrums.
He stopped and took my hand.
If you'd like, I can fuck your eardrum.
No, that's not what he says.
If it's a problem, we can just go back to the car, he said. We passed that little motel with a hot tub, free HBO.
No, I said, looking out into the distance. The mountains around us had started to disappear into the horizon. The flat extended endless in all directions, like we were on the surface of an Earth-sized ping-pong ball, totally smooth. I wanted to go deeper into nothing, and, in truth, I'd begun to like the music. He tried to hold on to my hand as we continued on, but I dropped it. I had the sudden wish that I hadn't brought him. Not because of anything he'd done, just because he... was. We went on like that for a few more miles. The sun grew lower, the shadows longer, and the music louder. I couldn't believe he didn't hear it. I found myself walking in rhythm with the notes. The brittle ground crunched beneath my sneakers in a pleasing way, all in 4/4. I had taken piano lessons as a girl and often found myself hypnotized by the metronome when I tried to practice. I never got any good, but I was her again, 8 years old, tapping my feet to the steady rhythm around me. As the sky went from blue to orange, I began to notice strange movements on the ground. Little black dots poked out from under the ledges of the nearby broken clay. The movements were so slight that they may have been nothing. Dust mites against my pupil, something like that. The music had grown noticeably louder. You still don't hear it? I asked Caleb. He didn't respond. Caleb? Nothing. Caleb! He looked over at me as if waking.
Sorry,
He said,
got a lot on my mind.
Did you see anything on the ground? I asked. Little black things?
Like bugs?
He asked. Maybe. He shook his head. Wait. Oh, okay.
I was just thinking, though, when I looked at the pictures of this hike, there were, like, little plants everywhere. Like, little half-dead patches of grass? That kind of thing. Not a lot, but
He gestured around.
now there's nothing. Not even dead twigs.
Maybe it all washed away, I guessed. You said maybe it flooded,
Yeah,
he said.
probably.
You didn't see the black things? I asked. He shook his head.
I remembered reading about locusts once,
He said.
This was maybe 100 years ago. They found them in the desert a few miles from here. They'd been storming through the countryside, eating field after field. Somehow they ended up a few miles that way. They must have ran out of food. People found the whole swarm dead, baking in the heat. Insects stacked almost a foot deep.
Gross, I said, because what else could you say? He looked up at the sky, just realizing how late it had grown.
We should put up the tent while we can still see.
A single asterisk! We made camp. Soon we had the tent up and a little camp stove going. We ate canned chili topped with goldfish crackers, then popped a couple of edibles each for dessert. That seems like a bad idea, but okay. Stars bloomed over us. The music played like a magnificent orchestra. We undressed and made love, and the stars seemed to swell on Twitter.com. Ew,
I love you,
said Caleb.
I'm sorry I've been so distracted. I've just been, gathering courage, I guess.
Naked, he fumbled in his car. Well, I mean, I know you're going to propose now. Like, there's no surprise now, unless it's like, you're going to break up with me. It's been a year, dude. It's only been a year. Slow down. Slow down. I'm not that easy. Or interested. Or easily interested. Naked, he fumbled in his pile of discarded clothes and came out with a box. Oh, he came out! Oh, good for you. Good for you, Caleb. That's nice. So now we don't have to get married? It vaguely dawned on me what he was proposing.
Well,
He asked. He had asked the actual question. I'd been so enthralled by the music I hadn't been listening. Yes, I said, feeling I couldn't answer anything else. But the more I thought of it, the more I realized I could never marry him or anyone. Even the idea that I'd soon have to share a tent with him suddenly repulsed me. Made me want to run miles through the desert back to the car. He slipped the ring on my finger. I held it up and saw what might have been a diamond or maybe the reflected lights of the stars.
I love you,
He said. I was still on my back looking up at the night sky. The stars winked in and out. Is it cloudy? I asked. Is a flock of birds passing overhead? He looked up.
Huh,
He said. Then he turned back to me.
I love you.
He said again, clearly searching. I chose to ignore it. The stars shouldn't wink like that, I told him. This isn't right.
You're right,
He said.
and we'll talk about it, but first, can you say I love you back?
I love you, I said. Caleb took a deep breath in. There were maybe half as many stars in the sky now, maybe a third,
Okay,
he said quietly. What?
it's just, it didn't seem very sincere.
He said. I'm worried about the stars, I said. Something dark is moving over them, and the music is like really, really loud,
Forget it.
he said.
I'm tired. We should get some sleep.
We got dressed and got in the tent. Caleb rolled around a bit at first, wrestling with something he wanted to say, probably, then finally his breath steadied. I lay awake for maybe an hour listening to the swelling music. Though the tent was zipped and I couldn't see outside, I could tell the stars were going out. All of them. If I'd opened the tent flap, I'm sure the sky would have been empty. One asterisk! I woke alone in the morning. No Caleb. I had a vague memory of waking up in the middle of the night, Caleb whispering that he had to take a piss and that I should go back to bed, but that must have been hours ago. I put my hand on the tent zipper and for a moment I hesitated. The hum was gone, and I could tell that from the light that the sun was out, but everything still felt wrong. Like I'd open the flap and see hell outside, the dead souls wading waist deep in boiling water, reaching out pink red fingers, skin loose on the bone. No, it would be fine. I'd open the flap and find Caleb boiling water for coffee. Maybe he'd brought some kind of special breakfast. Croissants from salt and wheat, or a sprouted wheat bagel toasted over the burner. I pulled the zipper, revealing nothing. Nothing but white, red earth in all directions. I called out for Caleb, but didn't hear a thing. I called over and over again. Nothing. Our footprints from the day before stretched back to the car. Another went the opposite way. I suppose that must be the way to Caleb went. So I started walking. Caleb's stride was longer than mine, but I tried to step in his footsteps anyway to make a game for myself. As I went on, the strides grew longer, the indentations deeper. I could no longer match his footsteps. He must have been running. There was no sound at all, except that of my own heart. Now racing overtime, I found myself calling Caleb's name again, but it was all futile. The desert ate my voice before it could reach anyone. Not that there was anyone to reach. Had Caleb abandoned me? Had I been crueler than I remembered? Had I somehow broken him fundamentally in a way I was too callous to understand? His footsteps stopped. Impossible. The desert stretched on forever. But where had he gone? It was like a giant eagle had plucked him off the ground and flown him away. Probably toward Mordor, if I had to guess. I turned and felt something underfoot. Something different than the cracking earth. I knelt down and brushed away the fresh dust of my footprint to reveal a small metal rod, not quite an inch long. For a moment I stared at it, utterly baffled. The wind picked up, stirring dirt devils from the endless desert, and then I realized what I was holding in my hand. Caleb's tongue ring. I screamed and dropped it. Then, feeling as if I'd desecrated a corpse, I picked it up and examined it again. The clasp was still fastened and hard to untwist, as if it hadn't been taken out in a long time. However, the tongue ring had ended up here. Caleb hadn't unscrewed it. Not sure of what to do, I put it in my pocket. I rubbed at the surrounding dirt, wondering if I'd find some other sign of him. A button maybe, a metal filling, a fragment of bone, but there was no trace of Caleb anywhere. Even the tongue ring itself was spotless, unbloodied. The wind stopped and the silence was overwhelming. My ears filled with the sound of my own fast-pumping blood. I looked up, hoping to see a bird circling, some sign of life, but nothing appeared. Then, almost inaudibly, the music returned. The same notes played with a newfound excitement, a faster pace. I stood, turned, and walked briskly back to the tent. I was trying not to run. Caleb had run. I reached the tent, but I didn't pack up. Instead, I grabbed a single bottle of water along with my wallet and Caleb... Wallop? Along with my wallop. My wallet and Caleb's keys. Then I continued walking, retracing our footsteps from the day before like they were the trail of breadcrumbs or a golden thread. The excited hum continued. When I scanned the ground, I spotted more tiny black objects poking out from beneath the cracks in the earth, disappearing into the shadows when I approached. I was crying a little, my tears going muddy as they rolled down the dust caking my cheeks. It was one thing to die, it was another to disappear and leave no trace. Fear racked me inside, but I knew that if I let it show, the black things would sense it. They'd smell it on me and devour me in an instant. A mile passed, then several. The song grew joyous and anticipatory. My water ran out. Something in the back of my neck screamed run, while something in front of my skull replied, "Don't you dare." The song reached its crescendo. Did we all hear it? I wondered when death was close. Was it the hum of the universe calling us back to its heart, or was it simply the small black things singing their warning? I hate when my two skulls argue. I imagine it's the limbic system and probably some kind of... I don't know where your rational thoughts come from. Probably the butt. It's the limbic system and the butt. Mountain appeared on the horizon. I recognized it immediately as the Overlook Hotel. It took everything not to run. No, I would not. If anything, I slowed. The music calmed into a subdued artiago. The flat ground became a gentle slope and then a steep one. As I ascended, the music faded fully away. A few minutes later, I reached the car. Slowly, deliberately, I opened the door and closed it behind me. It wasn't until I latched shut that I realized a bee was buzzing frantically against the windshield. Panic, total inexplicable panic swelled in and I lashed out, smashing the insect against the windshield with my palm. I felt a surge of pain and realized that the bee had stung me, even in death. Normally, I would have screamed. But if anything, the pain filled me with a sense of calm. I remained capable of feeling alive. 1 asterisk! They never did find any trace of Caleb. They said they sent out a search party, found the tent, the rest of our belongings. I kept waiting to hear the news that they'd found a dead swarm of locusts or some other insects, but that never came. Maybe whatever they were, they crawled back underground for a long sleep. Like it! Caleb knew everything about me. My favorite songs, the way I like my coffee. But even then, I'm ashamed to say that I barely knew him. Once he was gone, erased as if he never was, I tried to hold on to every memory I could of him. A few witty remarks he'd made while we were watching Friends on Netflix. The tips he gave me on shaving when he noticed my razor burn. Now, with time, those memories are fading. Caleb didn't have many friends, and his family barely knew him. I suppose that's why I wrote this down today, because all that's left of him are these paltry, insufficient words. I told you not to go to a second location. Bro, I told you. Don't go to a second location. This is how you end up dead. It's how you end up reduced to nothing but a piece of jewelry, idiot. That's why people die. Oh, rule horror. I guess we'll probably end with this. Oh no, it's very short. Never mind. Thank you and apologies to Liquid Dongerong once again. We had some Liquid Dongerong last week. Oh no, they're the ones that like the body horror, aren't they? You. No body horror, please. Thank you and apologies with my new job has a weird rule. You have to wear a mask. I took the job after 6 whole months of gainful unemployment. The job hunt was brutal. It's not like I'm unqualified. God, no. I have my bachelor's in communications. I had good grades in school. The problem was my employment history. I could never hold something steady for longer than a year, maybe 2. In the worst cases, I'd get dropped after 3 months. Nothing ever stuck with me. I thought I had my lane out of college, but it just didn't work out, and from there I've spiraled. Another issue is that most of the postings feel like they exist purely for analytics. Ghost jobs made to comply and make a company look healthier than they really are. There were a few real ones, but none that extended any offers, probably because of my history. My bills certainly didn't care that I was struggling. I had to figure something out fast or I'd be on the street within a month. I kept seeing a listing for some generic talent acquisition agency. $25 an hour, no experience necessary. I kind of figured it was one of those botted jobs. Too good to be true, with an empty description beyond the hours pay and a painful company statement. We believe that every individual has the potential to shape tomorrow. Our mission is to connect ambition with opportunity through innovative people-first solutions that drive meaningful growth for both candidates and clients. Ellipses. Ugh. I wanted to vomit, but I didn't really have much for options at this point. I decided to send in my resume. Got a phone call the next hour asking me when I would be able to come in for an in-person orientation. I was floored. I'd never heard of this company before, and yet they have a warehouse in my city. Sure enough, I pull up to the address and yeah, it's there. A big white warehouse with TAA branded on the side. I guess it was nondescript enough for me to have not noticed all these years, but I grew up here. I think I would have noticed this place by now. Orientation took place in a windowless conference room. Before they let us inside, a curvy woman with a bob cut, Ms. Roll, that's an unfortunate name, handed us each a doll mask. The plastic was pale with a painted-on smile and 2 empty eye holes. Security kept us from going inside unless we put them on. Weird policy, but okay, I was in for the long haul now. I put on the mask and took a seat on one of the 100 folding chairs set in the front of a projector. A video begins to play. The company CEO, Mr. Rock, walks on screen in a lumpy suit. He asks if everyone... Asked, man. Asked. There's a D there. If everyone was ready to get started, all 3 of us, and launched into a vaguely enthusiastic speech about the company values. Everything in that tangent sounded like it was written by a language model halfway through its morning coffee. Okay. Remember, our product is first in class, no other substitution will do. Remember, we don't believe customers can make mistakes. Remember, think different, shape the future. I sat through what felt like 2 hours of it. My eyes started to roll back. The mask itched where it pressed on my cheeks. Ms. Roll smacked my leg with a fly swatter. I woke right the hell up. Mr. Parker, please follow me. She started walking through a pair of iron doors. Time for a tour, I suppose. We walked through a warehouse first. Massive, but mostly empty. Conveyor belts carried different shaped cardboard boxes from one end of the room to another. I never saw anyone actually packing them. The only person working the floor was a short, portly fellow in a red hard hat. Why is everyone heavy? I still wasn't clear on exactly what our product was, but I think I must have missed that part in our orientation. I was too embarrassed to ask. We reached the call center next. This is where I was going to be working, according to Ms. Roll. She set me down in a boring cubicle with a single computer, a notepad, some mechanical pencils, and a phone. The computer had solitaire. No, not solitaire! And a basic text editor. The phone had 2 buttons, transfer and hold. Ms. Roll told me I'd get the hang of it in no time. She disappeared in the sea of cubicles shortly after. I sat for maybe 20 minutes trying to figure out something to do to look productive. After that, I gave up and started playing solitaire. Maybe 30 seconds passed before I got a call.
Hello?
Hi there, I said.
Is this acquisitions?
I looked around the room, no point of reference for me to use. I believe so.
Oh, thank God. I was hoping I could talk to someone about landing a job.
I cleared my throat. Could you hold for 1 second? The man on the other end grunted. I hit hold and looked for Ms. Roll. Nowhere in sight. Sweat started soaking beneath the mask. Got back on the line. Sir, are you still there?
Pretty sure I am.
Okay, thank you. Listen, I'm pretty new here. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not entirely sure how to help you. My boss isn't around and...
This is acquisition, Troy.
Yes?
Okay, then I'd like to inquire about a fucking job.
The shift in his voice was very jarring, to say the least. I had to do a double take. I'm not sure how to help with that. I haven't been...
You stupid slut!
Whoa.
Who do you think you are?
I couldn't get a single word out.
I'll find you, you hear? I'll kill you all fucking...
I hung up, hands trembling. Miss Roll was standing right behind me with her arms crossed. I couldn't see her face, but her neck was redder than before. I could only assume that meant the same for her expression.
What was that?
She asked. I don't know. I have no idea. I wasn't...
Do you see your phone?
Yes.
Do you see those two big red buttons on it?
Yes.
If you don't know how to help a customer, just hit the transfer button. We've covered it in your training.
What training? The videos? I was more of a hands-on guy myself, even if I wasn't. How did she expect me to memorize 2 hours worth of drivel? I didn't say anything. She was already walking away.
You seem tense, Mr. Parker. Take a 5-minute water break.
Sure. Yeah, that might help. I got up and headed to the cooler. I found another guy there dressed in more or less the same outfit as me. Black slacks, a button-up shirt, dark leather belt. His mask was yellowed and warped at the edges, like he'd been using the same one for a real long time. He was sipping water through the little mouth slit like it was totally normal. I shook my head and started to lift mine from my cup. His arm shot out, hand stopping mine. I reeled back, heart pounding. No. Don't let him see you. He pointed at the camera up in the upper section of in the upper corner of the room, locked right on both of us. My mask suddenly felt tighter. I threw the cup away and went back to my desk. Calls kept on coming. Most people were looking for work. They were always really, really vague about the details.
I want a leadership position.
I'd really like to work on the floor.
I'm hoping to work with a
Driven team. Sometimes people called about the product itself. I tried to glean any details I could during these conversations. Never learned much, though.
Hi, is this acquisitions?
This is...
I wanted to make a return. I wasn't satisfied with my product.
What wasn't satisfying?
Well, it just wasn't as exciting as I'd hoped.
Okay, can you elaborate on that?
Oh, I don't know. It just wasn't very exciting. Can I return it?
Hold for 1 second. I sighed and hit the transfer button. The caller sucked down the line. I got better at the job the way you get better at any empty ritual. I tried to challenge myself to keep a conversation going for as long as I could before it collapsed and I couldn't help them anymore. Bullshitting got me a longer way. My personal record was 5 minutes and 14 seconds. Sometimes people wanted advice. One guy even read me the first page of his screenplay. Did the voices and everything. Yeah, what a loser. Most calls were just about product and job placement, though. Nothing worth writing home about, and yet it was quickly becoming my entire life. 6 months passed like that. I stopped going out. After a full day of calls, I was too tired. I would get home, saving my energy for the next shift, and fall asleep within a few hours, if I even lasted that long. The mask stopped itching as much. Some days I forget it's there, even on the bus. In mid-August, the loudspeaker crackled. Mr. Rock announced that overtime would become mandatory for the next few months as we enter the busy season. Ms. Roll tells me to pack an extra lunch. The next day ran for 16 hours straight. By the time I got through transit, it was closer to 20 hours spent dedicated to my job alone that day. I'd be lucky if I got 4 hours of sleep before the next shift. I walked into my tiny studio apartment, exhausted, sore, totally muggy. I ripped the mask from my face and leaned over the bathroom sink to splash it with cold water. I felt nothing. When I looked up in the mirror, there was a hole where my face should have been. Depthless. No eyes, No nose. No mouth. I stood there for a long time, waiting for the panic to hit. It never did.
Okay. Okay.
Oh no! Workplace is very depersonalizing. You feel your humanity slip away as you continue to slave away at the same pointless job day in, day out. Too real. Too real. Too real. I don't know if we've got time for this, but we'll give it a shot. That's a lot of words. That is a lot of words. Maybe it's too long. This one's a bit better. Okay. So we're up to that point. We're up to that point, guys, where it's like, oh, we've got about half an hour left. I don't know how much I can actually read in that amount of time. I've been around... Oh, sorry. Thank you and apologies to Twisted Urban Tales with I've been around killers for 28 years. I was never afraid until this. I had been working in prisons, most of which housed killers and other violent offenders, for 28 years when I took on my last job. Some of them were impulsive, others were clever. I've seen it all. Prisoners have tried everything on me over the years. Death threats, fake medical emergencies, and contraband passed through food was just the tip of the iceberg. Men who'd spent weeks acting half dead before suddenly putting their head through a cell door weren't unusual. So by the time I called for the job, I had a reputation for being steady. The pay was better, but that wasn't what sold it for me. It was the prisoner. For the purposes of the story, I'll call him John. I'd heard his real name long before I was assigned to him. Everyone in corrections had. He was one of those serial killers you only hear about in true crime documentaries decades later. Dangerous. The kind of mastermind who stayed ahead of the police for years, leaving investigators chasing dead ends. Oh, wait, sorry. Leaving investigators chasing dead. My bad. Eventually, an entire task force threw everything they had at him, and some detective finally got lucky enough to find one tiny mistake in his plan. He'd been incarcerated under different names in institutions across the country. He had killed prison staff in multiple incidents, manipulated officers into giving him access to restricted areas, and made tools from things you should never have been capable of becoming tools. His file used the words exceptionally intelligent, highly skilled, and one psychologist had described him as possessing an unusual ability to recognize patterns in institutional behavior. Basically, another way of saying, the bastard keeps catching us off guard. A challenge, perhaps, but if anything, I was intrigued. I'd spent nearly 3 decades learning the tricks of the worst people society had to offer, and I wanted to see what he could throw at me. Okay. He's been stable, remarked the deputy warden as I closed the file. Caused no problems for several months. Before that? He picked up the file and flipped back through the photographs, medical reports, security assessments, and other evidence of the damage John left behind. Before that, he caused many. He grimaced slightly. So what changed? I guess he reconsidered. You'd be surprised many find God after a few years in the cell. I highly doubted that. I'd seen lots of men find God when they realized it might help their case. I said nothing and let him continue. Then the deputy warden ordered a drawer. Oh, for fuck's sake, man. Then the deputy warden opened a drawer and took out a small black device attached to a small lanyard with my staff ID card. There was a single recessed button on it. If anything happens, he said, placing it on the desk between us, push the button. Response time is very fast. I put the lanyard around my neck and followed him inside. The prison itself was impressive. There was concrete reinforced by steel, cameras everywhere, controlled doors and layered access points. It didn't seem like they were short on budget when it came to security. By the time I reached him, I'd expected something almost industrial, like a steel box with a solid door and restraints fixed to the wall. Instead, John was at the end of a block behind ordinary-looking bars alongside a few other prisoners in identical cells. Each had a bed, built-in toilet and sink, a desk with a Bible on it. Well, I wouldn't give them access to that. One security camera in the corner overlooking the entire block. That was it. No chains, restraints, or reinforced doors. It seemed insultingly inadequate for both his reputation and my safety. John himself was young-looking, early 30s perhaps, clean-shaven and neatly dressed with short, dark hair. He had the build of a track runner. There was nothing physically intimidating about him. If I'd seen him on the street, I would have assumed he worked an office job. He stood when I approached, his voice quiet.
Morning. Morning. Hello, I'm gonna talk. I'll talk like this. I'll talk a little like this.
Morning, I replied, watching him carefully. You'll be seeing a lot of me. I'm taking over your supervision. Keep things straightforward, and we'll have no problems. His eyes moved down briefly to the ID card and button hanging from the lanyard around my neck and back to my face. He just gave a nod and sat down. I remained silent for a moment before taking the chair outside the bars. John was quiet for a while as he sat on the bed and flicked through the Bible. Eventually, he looked up at me and spoke.
How are you finding the new place?
He sounded nonchalant, like he was making an effort at small talk, but wasn't particularly interested in the answer. I watched him cautiously. Can't complain.
That's good. Assume you've been in enough places to compare.
Another pause as I watched him, looking for the trick. There was no defensiveness or aggression in his voice. You've been here for a while now, John, I finally said. No problems? He shook his head. Got everything you need?
Yeah. Bible and a bit of exercise when I feel like it.
I started asking the usual questions about how he was settling in and if there were problems with meals, showers, and so on. He answered everything politely with no attitude or attempts to provoke me. He didn't react when I mentioned I'd read his file. If anything, he seemed bored, but never disrespectful. I spent the rest of that shift waiting for the trick that never came. He's just trying to make me let my guard down, I thought. But I can't deny I'd gone in expecting more of a challenge. Eventually, I told him I was leaving at the end of my shift. He just nodded, not looking up from his Bible. I started making my way out and was halfway down the block when I heard a quiet, high-pitched noise coming from his cell nearest the door at the opposite end. It wasn't quite a voice. I frowned and walked to the end, peering in the cell. I nearly took a step back. An emaciated, almost skeletal prisoner was staring back at me, folded up in a dark corner of the cell. At first glance, I couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman. Only the high-pitched voice gave it away. Her arms looked little more than bone beneath skin, and her shoulders jutted forward in an awkward angle. What little hair she had left came in sparse wisps, hanging from her scalp in thin, uneven strands. Most of her head was visible beneath them. There were patches where it looked as though she'd pulled the hair out herself, and blisters where she'd picked at her skin. There was a tiny silver cross necklace around her neck. Then she made the noise again, that same high-pitched whine that sounded like something her body produced without her permission. After several seconds, she tilted her head slightly to one side and began whispering. Her lips moved rapidly, but the sound was so faint and indistinct that it might as well have been another language. I'd worked around mentally ill prisoners before. Whatever was wrong with this woman, I assumed it was along those lines. I'd gone into the block to meet one of the most dangerous men in the world, expecting if anything was going to unsettle me, it would surely be that, but as I stood there watching her, I'd forgotten about John entirely. I took a breath, broke eye contact, and left. For the next few weeks, nothing happened with John. He got up when he was supposed to, ate when food was brought around, took his exercise periods without complaint, returned to his cell when instructed. He never raised his voice or argued. Mostly, he seemed bored. According to his file, calculation was practically his defining characteristic. I'd gone into the assignment assuming that every interaction would have some purpose behind it, that every question he asked would be part of some larger plan, but nothing happened. And when nothing happens for long enough, you start to relax. One morning, I caught myself standing closer to the bars than I should have been, my keys hanging loosely from 2 fingers as I checked something on the clipboard. I noticed where I was standing and immediately stepped back, making a mental note of it. I'd spent nearly 2 decades telling younger officers not to do the exact same thing. The next week, I did the exact same thing. This time, John was sitting on the edge of his bed, watching me. He looked at the keys, then back at me like I was an idiot. Then he just laid down on the bed. A few days later, I made another stupid mistake. I dropped a flashlight within reach of the bars and only noticed when I was halfway down the block. When I went back to retrieve it, John hadn't made any attempt to touch it, let alone use it as a weapon or escape tool. He just glanced He glanced back at me with the same bored expression, now almost with a hint of added disappointment, as if he couldn't believe I'd been that careless. After a while, I started to wonder whether the man in the file and the man sitting in front of me were actually the same person. I wasn't naive enough to believe he'd suddenly become harmless, perhaps simply tired. The woman was harder to ignore. Sometimes she'd stand at the front of her cell and watch everyone that passed through the door. Sometimes she sat on the floor with her knees pulled up against her chest, rocking slightly. And sometimes she cried, a strange, broken sort of crying, with long pauses between each sound. I eventually got used to it in the way you get used to an unpleasant thing in a prison. One afternoon, long after speaking to John felt completely normal, I nodded toward her cell. She'd been in there a while. John glanced over and exhaled with a hint of frustration. Yeah, don't mind her. She does that all day. Sometimes at night, too, while everyone's trying to sleep. He sounded mildly inconvenienced. Does she ever talk? I glanced toward the cell. Not that I've heard. I took his word for it, figuring that whatever she'd done up to end up in a place like this, she probably deserved it. A few mornings later, I was running late. I underestimated how long it would take me to get through some paperwork before my shift. And there was a form I needed to complete that needed the long ID number of my staff badge. I took the lanyard off along with the button and copied down the number. Then I stuffed both into my trouser pocket and hurried to the block. By the time I entered John's section, I'd completely forgotten about it. John was sitting on the edge of his bed, his Bible beside him. Morning. Morning. I closed the door behind me and started checking the block. We exchanged the usual few words. He said he slept well enough. Then I turned away from him to check something on my clipboard. I heard a metallic click. I looked back and the cell was empty. The door was open and John was gone. Then I felt his arm lock around my neck. I was surprised in the moment, but I didn't panic. If anything, I'd been expecting something like this from the beginning. Finally, I thought. There he is. The real John. I reacted automatically, tucking my chin hard against my chest and grabbing his choking arm with both hands, trying to relieve the pressure while turning toward him. It was something I'd practiced countless times over the years. I managed to get 2 fingers in between his forearm and my neck, creating just enough space to breathe. For a moment, I thought I might get out of it without even having to use the button and teach him a lesson after. But then he adjusted effortlessly, shifting his grip and driving his forearm back against my neck. The pressure was precise, and he knew exactly what he was doing. I tried to drop my weight and drive backwards into him, but he anticipated that too and stood firm. My legs were already beginning to weaken, and whatever advantage I thought I had disappeared. This was not someone I could afford to underestimate. My vision began to narrow as I reached instinctively for the button at my chest. Nothing. For one confused second, I couldn't understand why it wasn't there, but then I remembered I put it in my pocket after using my ID card for the paperwork. I fumbled for it, but my fingers weren't working properly anymore. I could feel the edge of the device against my leg, just out of reach. I clawed at the pocket, then my fingers closed around it and I pushed the button. For a second, nothing happened. No shrieking alarms or anything of the sort. Then I heard boots pounding down the corridor. 10 guards burst through the door almost at once. As soon as they entered, the pressure around my neck vanished. I collapsed forward, coughing and dragging air into my lungs. I stumbled away from the cell, more frustrated at having to use the button than relieved to be alive, replaying the attack in my head. I was already running through the counters I could have used if I had another few seconds. I glanced at them, expecting them to seize John. But they didn't even go past me. They turned straight into the woman's cell. 2 officers grabbed her and she began screaming. Not like the strange whining sound before. This was a scream of pure terror, so loud and prolonged that it seemed to fill the entire block. One of the officers forced her arm behind her back, and another officer produced a syringe containing a yellow liquid. Screaming intensified as the color emptied into her neck. Confused, I looked toward John at the other end of the block. He was on his knees. His eyes were wide and glassy. Please. His voice was barely audible beneath her screaming. Oh. Oh. Sorry, it just dawned on me. His voice was barely audible beneath her screaming. He met my gaze. Tell them to stop, please. I just stared at him. I don't know what's happening. I finally managed. I didn't even hear myself speak. One of the guards turned toward him. Back in the cell, John. The guard raised another syringe. Or you know what happens. John's swallowed. Eyes still wide. He stood and walked back into the cell voluntarily. The woman was still screaming, but her voice was breaking now. They dragged her back into the cell and closed the door. Another officer closed the bars behind John. Then they simply left and didn't even bother checking John's cell to see how he'd escaped. I stepped closer to John's cell cautiously and noticed something small on the ground. It made a key of sorts. I picked it up. It was crude, but unmistakable. A thin, rigid piece of material shaped to fit the lock, made of paper. I told you you shouldn't have left in the Bible, you friggin' idiots! The key had been made from pages of his Bible, laid and compressed until they formed something stiff enough to manipulate the mechanism. Then I looked at the Bible still on his desk. I hadn't even bothered to take it away. I looked at John sitting on the edge of his bed again. Then his eyes dropped to the button in my hand. For the first time since I'd started working that block, I hadn't been wearing the button around my neck. I'd put it in my pocket. But it seemed John thought I'd forgotten it altogether. He looked back at me with something like betrayal. I came back the following morning. I wasn't particularly looking forward to it, but I hadn't slept well. Hey! And decided it was better to get the first shift out of the way. John was exactly where I'd left him, sitting on the edge of his bed with the Bible beside him. Morning. Morning. I stood outside the bars for a moment, studying him. There was no hostility or lingering resentment in his expression, nothing that suggested he'd nearly killed me the day before, or the chaos that came after. John, can I see the Bible? Yeah, here. He picked it up and handed it through the bars without protest. I took it from him and turned it over in my hands, then opened it. Sure enough, 2 pages had been torn out. I flicked through the section around the missing pages and looked back at him. These shouldn't be missing. I'll have to confiscate it. He shrugged. I suppose not. Have it. He said it with complete indifference. I turned the Bible over again and ran my thumb along the inside of the back cover and felt something give slightly beneath it. There was a flap. Not part of the original binding, something had been carefully worked into the inside of the cover, creating a small concealed pocket. I slipped my finger underneath it and pulled out a photograph. It was old. The colors had faded slightly and the edges were worn from being handled. I looked at it and saw a man and a woman. I immediately recognized the man in the photograph was John, younger by at least 10 years. He was smiling as he looked at the woman. I'd never seen him smile like that. The young woman beside him looked healthy and beautiful. There was warmth in her face and she was smiling too. Her head rested against his shoulder, his arm around her waist. I didn't recognize her at first until I noticed that she was wearing a tiny silver cross necklace. The same one as the emaciated woman on the other side of the block. The realization dawned on me. Why does it always take these people so long to figure this shit out? Like, as soon as he was like, oh, they didn't go for him, they went for the woman, and they injected her with the yellow serum. Why would they do that? It's because he's your freaking partner, you idiots. That's how they're keeping him under control. You dipshit. Ah. You talked like you didn't know her, I said, still looking down at the photo. I looked up at him and almost jumped. He was looking at me with pure, unfiltered hatred. I wonder why. Neither of us spoke for a long time. It was then I understood that he couldn't be doing... What? It was then that I understood he wouldn't be doing anything else with the Bible. I slotted the photo back inside and slid it carefully down through the bars. He seemed to relax a little and looked away. When he spoke, his voice was quiet and flat. She didn't used to look like that. I watched him. What did they do to her? He didn't answer. A minute passed. Then he lay on the bed and turned his face toward the wall. I'm tired. I'm going to sleep for a bit. And that was all I got. For the first time since I'd met him, I didn't see a dangerous man sitting in that cell. I finally understood what the button actually did. It wasn't there to protect me from John. It was there to control him. John was back to his regular self after that, but I wasn't. Once I'd seen the photograph, I couldn't stop thinking about the woman at the end of the block. I looked through the records as my last shift of the week finished. Every inmate had a paper trail. Things like arrest and court records, sentencing information, medical records, even people who had been incarcerated for decades left a mountain of paperwork behind them. I couldn't find hers. There was a prisoner number, but no corresponding sentencing record. No court order or conviction. I thought perhaps I'd missed something and dug deeper. The name was there, and the entries went back a few months. I frowned when I realized what I was looking at. Visitor's log. She had visited John at his previous facility more than once. Then I reached the final entry. The status had been changed from visitor to inmate. I stared at it for a long time, then flipped to the admission form of the offense. Something had been written there, but the handwriting was almost completely illegible. It looked as though whoever had filled it out had written it in a hurry, or simply didn't care whether anyone could read it. I took the paperwork to the warden. What's this? I pointed to the handwriting. He looked at the page and squinted at it, then shrugged. No idea. How do you expect me to read that? She was John's visitor. Oh, was she? Well, birds of a feather. He headed to the office. It was then I understood that she'd done nothing at all, and I wasn't going to be part of that. The next morning, I walked into the warden's office and put my badge on his desk. Then I put the button beside it. He looked at them. You're quitting already? Yes. Didn't ask why. Didn't argue. Just nodded. All right. You just have to find something to take place then. Left us with a hard job, eh? I handed everything over before the end of my shift and walked through the prison one final time. I reached the last security door and stepped outside. I almost reached the outer gate when I heard her scream. It was faint, but unmistakable, carrying through the reinforced walls despite the distance. Then came another voice. Please. Please stop. I mean, it's like a burying the lead situation. It was good. But it's always frustrating when the characters are sort of dumb. Kind of a little dumb. Like, you didn't need to see a picture to know that the woman was important to the dude. Anyway, I don't have time to do the blah, 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 etc., etc. I gotta go. It's been 3 hours and 2 minutes. I gotta go get ready. Goodbye, once again, my little rat bags. You little creatures, you little cretins. You enjoy that? You enjoy sitting there while I talked for 3 hours? Yeah, I bet you did. I bet you did. So, same time next Wednesday? It's Wednesday again. Oh! God, oh God, oh God. Yeah, 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 yeah. Sorry, this is the sound of me putting my microphone away. It was silent. Never mind. Ba, ba, ba.